The fund symbolizes the founders' belief in the importance of education to our society and to the teaching of education. This year's award of $2,042 will be sent to Tan's College of Choice. So Tan's at the speakers table. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your college choice and your plans for study?
Okay, sorry. Hello, my name is Tan Dai. I'm a student at Madison. 4 years ago, I came to America with my parents, and I didn't know how to speak English. However, I never gave up, and I always try really hard in my education. Now, I'm a valedictorian at Madison High School for the last of 2014. After Thank you. After graduating from high school, my plan include attending Portland State University and majoring in education. In those 4 years, I will in turn continue as well as work with the Vietnamese school to help train them, my teaching skill, and expand what I have learned in college. I also plan to be active both on campus and off campus. On campus, I want to participate in many different student activities to build strong connection with other students and staff. When I am off campus, I want to be a volunteer math tutor with the Madison High School or any Portland public school to gain more experience in the field. In the future, I will be a good teacher.
Great. Well, Tan, it sounds like you have a lot of determination, so I don't have any doubt, and I don't think my colleagues do either, that you're going to be a very good teacher someday.
Yeah.
I hope you'll come back to Portland Public Schools and be a teacher with us.
Okay.
We would love to have you. I guess, is that an employment offer? It might be. It's okay.
Yeah.
So, Tan, if you would like to come up to the front, we'll
Okay.
get together and we'll have a picture. Ready? That's fun. Thank you, Tan. You're welcome. Oops, it's okay. Okay, what a wonderful way to start our meeting today. Yay, one more time. Go Tan. Okay, moving on to our next agenda item. At this time, we'll have public comment. Ms. Houston, do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
Yes, we have 4.
Okay.
Our first 2, Greg Burrell and Maureen Kenny.
While those people are coming up, I will go ahead and read the instructions for public comment. Thank you very much for taking the time to come to our board meeting. We deeply value public input, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts, reflections, and concerns. Our responsibility as a board lies in actively listening and reflecting on the thoughts and opinions of others. Guidelines for public input emphasize respect and consideration when referring to board members, staff, and other presenters. The board will not respond to any comments or questions at this time, but the board or staff will follow up with various issues that are raised. Please make sure that you've left your contact information with Ms. Houston. Pursuant to Board Policy 1.70.012, speakers may offer objective criticism of district operations and programs, but the board will not hear complaints concerning individual district personnel. Any complaints about specific employees should be directed to the superintendent's office and will not be heard in this forum. You have a total of 3 minutes to share your comments. Please begin by stating your name, spelling your last name. For the first 2 minutes, there'll be a green light on the in front of you there. When you have 1 minute remaining, a yellow light will come on, and when your time is up, a red light will go on and a buzzer will sound, and we respectfully ask that you wrap up your comments at that time. So thank you very much for being here this evening.
My name is Maureen Kenny,
It's okay.
Kenny.
You can go ahead.
Okay. Superintendent Smith and members of the school board. I am a parent of 2 students enrolled at Chief Joseph Ockley Green. Tonight I will tell you why my son will not be attending 6th grade there this fall. We moved into our house 11 years ago with hopes of being a part of the upswing of the North Portland schools. When our son was diagnosed on the autism spectrum at age 4, he ended up attending a special program at Alameda for kindergarten. That year was magical, and he was able to return to our neighborhood school, Chief Joseph, for 1st grade, both academically and socially prepared. The warm community of students, principal, teachers, and parents at Chief Joe further nurtured him to the extent that his autism became virtually invisible. PPS's timely support changed our lives. I will always be grateful for that. But everything changed this year when he moved over to Ockley Green for 5th grade. From the beginning, he was a target for bullying. He loves to play soccer, but had to modify his play at recess to be less competitive than certain other kids, or he would be physically punished by them. During PE, the bullying students were particularly rough, and on one occasion, my son ended up with numerous bruises on his torso from being smashed into the walls. But perhaps even worse than the physical bullying is the constant verbal aggressions, both micro and macro, towards my son and his friends. He will not tell classmates that he has 2 moms because he regularly hears homophobic comments and he fears being teased even more. My partner and I communicated with the administration as these issues came up, and my son and his friends even composed a letter to the vice principal. None of this seemed to make any difference, and my once happy son became hopeless and depressed about school. Like other students on the autism spectrum, he is at risk for negative behaviors when he is under stress. The problem came to a head during spring break when my son said to me, "All you adults act like you care about this bullying, but nothing is changing for me. I have gotten more used to it, but it is still there just as much, if not more." At this point, my partner and I gave him the option of being homeschooled for the rest of the year, and he took it. We had to advocate for our son. We first tried the lottery and failed to get placement. Our son's first choice was Da Vinci, partly because its emphasis on the arts means that personal uniqueness is celebrated. We wrote an extensive hardship application citing the ostracism and bullying and sent it off to the transfer office. After 7 weeks of waiting, we were told that our case didn't qualify for a hardship. Our placement is Ockley. Good luck to our son. I know Da Vinci is popular, so transfers are limited. I also know that kids on the autism spectrum especially benefit from the arts and education because it provides the sometimes incommunicative with a way of being heard. We realize that the district may not be able to find room for our son at Da Vinci this year, but we need to know that he will, as law guarantees, be in the least restrictive environment. For our son, this is clearly not a place where he has been marginalized and bullied. We have been told that we can reapply for a hardship elsewhere or wait for openings in September. We cannot afford, for our fragile son's sake, to spend another 2 months hoping for the help we have been denied. We are asking for an expedited answer to his needs. If you could see and experience the anxiety and worry my son does, you would know why a delayed response is a cruel one. He cannot explain what it is like to carry his challenges within, to be a child with an invisible disability. But I can, a little, and I am here so that my son can be seen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kenny. Mr. Burrell, you want to go ahead? Since I saw you arrive.
Yes, I apologize. I've been playing with the traffic. So, anyway, my name is Greg
Careful.
Burrell, Burrill, and I'm continuing because I realized after I talked to you last time and used the word racism, right, I've gotten some interesting feedback. So, today I want to talk about racism through the lens of my big 3 questions. First of all, you've heard me say before that raising and educating the next generation of human beings is our most important job as educators. You've heard me say that when you come right down to it, educating children is about the relationships between each child and the network of education professionals surrounding him or her. And if you'll remember, after our contract was settled, or the teacher contract was settled, I said we need some forgiveness, right? And the reason I'm back is because the last time I addressed you, some people thought that I was accusing you of being racist. And I wanted to make sure that you understood that either we're all racists or none of us are. We're visual beings that organize our world by the way things look, and people look different, right? So what happens is that I want to make sure that we remember forgiveness, and I want to make sure that we understand just how deep and difficult this is. The fact is that it's at the local level, it's at the school board, it's the city council, the only place where we get to be people to people, face to face, not blacks and whites and reds and greens. So what I want to say is courageous conversations aren't the problem, it's that they don't go far enough. Right? You have to listen to white parents explain why they fight boundary changes and enrollment and transfer policy, but you have to watch them sitting across from black parents and brown parents, figuring out how their children are going to move forward together. We're not going to get anywhere by factionalizing and so on and so forth, right? But the one thing that I want to remind you of is I've gotten the feeling, what I meant to say when I was talking about racism, there is no greater racism than lowering the bar, either of discipline or of academic achievement, right? School expulsions or exclusions aren't going to go away if we don't exclude kids whose behavior warrants it. Right? We're not going to save children by refusing to fail them if they don't master the material. Right? Fixing our boundaries and enrollment transfer policies will take parents, students, and teachers coming to the agreement that PPS implements. I believe that anything else besides that is doomed to failure. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you.
Two speakers, Shonda Justice and Jessica Thompson.
Greetings, Superintendent Smith and board members. My name is Jessica Thompson, Jessica-Thompson. I am the PTA president at Chief Joseph Ackley Green. I'm here to tell you a story, a true story, a story about an injustice, a problem about institutional racism, a story without an ending, and a story that allows you to craft the conclusion. Imagine it is 2008. Your friends and family tell you about Ackley Green K-8 Arts and Technology Magnet School. You visit, meet a gifted, welcoming principal named Joseph Malone, hear about the large Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation grant the school received, a grant that renovated the school auditorium into a 21st century state-of-the-art technology space. Maybe you or your cousins or your parents attended school there, and you're looking forward to helping build the exciting next chapter in the life of that school. You enroll your children. You live in Outer St. John's, and the only way you can make the school work is to have your child ride the PPS bus provided from your neighborhood to OG. Then imagine the largely white gentrifying families moving into the homes surrounding Ackley Green choose not to enroll their students in this magnet school. Imagine Joseph Malone leaves. The grant drives up. PPS closes one of the last K-5 feeders, Kenton, that feeds into the Ackley Green middle grades. The only feeder left, Chief Joseph K-5, has little to no relationship with Ackley Green. As a result, very few Chief Joseph students roll up to 6th grade at Ackley. Instead, they take the bus to Robert Gray, sometimes called Ackley Green of the West, or MLC, sometimes called Ackley Green of Downtown, or Da Vinci, Ackley Green of the East. Your family is left in an arts and technology school with an ever-shrinking enrollment and no art teacher. After a few tumultuous months, your children then in February of 2013, the school board votes to merge your school with Chief Joseph, forcing the Chief Joseph parents and children to attend Ackley Green. After a few tumultuous months, your children settle into a new routine in their dual campus schools. Your primary grades child is happy to see their Ackley Green teachers and friends at Chief Joseph. Your older children are enjoying a fully departmentalized middle school, art classes with a top-notch arts teacher in the formerly mothballed art room. They rise to the expectations of their new dance teacher, a former Jefferson dancer, in the gorgeous new dance studio. They're taking robotics and engineering. This, you think, or the arts and technology offerings you wish your child had had at Ackley Green K-8 Arts and Technology School. In your private moments, or when you and your family and friends are together, you wonder why now, when the Chief Joseph students are being forced to attend Ackley Green, the school is getting the arts and technology programming you were promised when you enrolled your first child at Ackley Green 7 years ago. Still, overall, your child is happy. They've always loved their teachers and friends before and after the merge. You know children do better when there are no disruptions to their education. You are optimistic and excited about the chance to help build CJOG. Last week, your children and other CJOG students who are former Ockley Green Magnet students and ride buses from out of neighborhood to Chief Joseph Ockley Green received a letter from the PPS Department of Student Transportation. This letter was given to students by their bus drivers 2 days before school lets out for the year, and 4 months after the lottery, you learn that PPS will not be providing buses for your children anymore.
Ms.
This impacts.
Thompson, I'm afraid your time was up quite a while ago. Can you, one more sentence,
Yep.
please?
Right now, buses are rolling from St. John's to Richmond and Mount Tabor immersion programs. You can imagine the demographics of the children on those buses, and you can imagine the demographics on the children of the buses rolling from St. John's to Ockley Green. And I'm asking you to look
you.
at that decision through the racial equity educational policy.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Shonda Justice, SHANDA-JUSTICE. Please put yourself in my shoes. I have a young child with a slight autism, happy to go to the same school her big brother's going to, where he's been a part of that community since kindergarten. The next year, to understand that they have to be separated and go to a different school where color does matter, where color makes people uncomfortable. But she's adapted, made new friends, and added those friends to her community and her family. We've been a part of Ockley Green for 10 years, been through all the changes. And now I have to put my child through another change. I'm asking you to please understand that coming into our community and not really putting yourself inside of our shoes when there's active parents there to help make things be different and to be a part who really want change, this is going to be detrimental to my child. Because now, again, she's going to have to find a different school to go to with new faces again. The learning curve that she's had has changed, and now it's going to set her back again. I called to ask why the transfer change was being made. I was told because our kids were part of the George area. My children have never went to George. The kids that are on the bus are from Ockley Green, Chief Joseph area. So it didn't make sense to me telling me that we were taking children from their boundaries or from their school. So I'm asking you to please take a look at this again. We've built a community. Unfortunately, some are not working, but the majority are. This will break the bond that we've built. This will tear up the communities that is striving together. And the family that we've grown, that we planted and now is growing, is going to break. So I'm asking you please to take a second look at this and really look at what lives are really going to be. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have your contact information with Ms. Hewson. Okay, on behalf of the board, I'd like to extend our sincere our thanks to all of you who testified, and to everyone, please make sure you have your contact information with Ms. Hewson. Okay, next on our agenda this evening is a Jefferson enrollment balancing. Per Board Resolution 4718, the board is to receive semi-annual updates on Jefferson enrollment balancing. Superintendent Smith, would you like to introduce this item?
I would. And Antonio Lopez, Regional Administrator for the Jefferson Cluster, will be presenting the report and introducing the other participants in the report.
Thank you, Superintendent Smith, Chair Knowles, directors, student representative, superintendent, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Antonio Lopez. I am currently the regional administrator for the Jefferson and Franklin clusters. It is indeed a great honor to be in front of you to give you an update on the Jefferson cluster enrollment balancing. You have in front of you a packet that gives you a background, related policies, alignment with equity, budget resources, and next steps. What I'm gonna do for this presentation, it is to introduce you to the principals in the Jefferson clusters. It is equally a great honor to present the people who are making all this possible. I would like to start by introducing Richard Gilliam. Richard Gilliam came to us in the Jefferson cluster as a half-time outreach coordinator. Richard will start by talking about what work he's been doing in the cluster and the role for next year. After Richard is done, you will hear from 3 schools that will be sharing with you what have been the successes this year, what are the things that they're working on and the challenges, and what will they like to accomplish for the next coming year. These 3 schools, we're very excited because they're bringing with them the PTA president and a teacher to talk about those 3 things. The first school after Richard finished his presentation will be Boise Elliott, followed by King, and then followed by Chief Joseph. After that, we will open for questions, and I will also address what we're doing in terms of the busing that we're looking into in terms of how to do the right thing. So let me introduce Richard Gilliam.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Good evening, Superintendent Smith, Board of Directors, Student Representative Davison. My name is Richard Gilliam, Gilliam. I am the Outreach Coordinator for the Jefferson Cluster. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about my role in this work here in the Jefferson Cluster in support of the resolution of the same with respect to the Jefferson Cluster. My role principally has been as the Outreach Coordinator, working with all the cluster schools, including Jefferson, on the marketing of their schools and the promotion of their schools as neighborhood schools. And what we've been able to do through collective team effort and working with the communications department and through the leadership of people like John Isaacs and Antonio Lopez and Dr. Harriet Adair is to utilize our communication department to create quality marketing materials for each of the schools. What we've been able to do this year is for each school create a postcard that was used to market to parents in the area to promote the schools as neighborhood schools and highlight some of the important programs in each respective school. We've been able to as well create high quality posters that could be used for the same purposes and market them to the businesses. A big part of in those areas, a big part of our work that we've been trying to do is to make sure that the neighborhood is fully aware of just how great our schools are, utilizing just a number of partners. It could be the community organizations in the area, it could be the neighborhood business associations, the neighborhood associations. So we use these marketing materials and make sure that they are getting the word out just about how great our schools are. Another role that I've been able to play, or that we've been able to play through this work, is promotion of events. There's various great events that really highlights the schools, the great teachers, the school-based leadership, and just what they're doing, such as their science fairs and their auctions. Just recently, for instance, at Woodlawn School, it takes a community event, which is a great event, concerning their, fundraising, their major fundraiser. Events such as those have been, around the cluster. We've been able to get the word out through our communications department and working with making sure those stories get out to the media so that we have a larger audience who may not, come to the school regularly because indeed may not even have children there. But that's the whole point, is making sure that the neighborhood is fully aware of just how great these schools are. I previously to doing this work was the director of community engagement for the bond program. And if it's one thing I learned at that point was that our schools are much more than bricks and mortar. Our schools are our kids, our schools are parents, our schools are neighborhoods. And that holistic perspective, I think, is very important for us to keep in mind as we go forward with this work in the cluster. Another thing that we've been doing is working with parents to create affirmative strategies for engagement and to get better parental involvement. Part of us making schools, really community and neighborhood schools to the full extent that they can be is to have maximum involvement and participation of parents. So we have some great leaders and of PTA leaders here around our cluster, and working with those leaders to ensure that we have the maximum involvement and getting as many voices in the room of of these schools and involved and speaking to other parents, because one of the things that is important for us to note is that oftentimes what affects our marketing posture of our schools is the negativity sometimes that bad rumors that associated with the schools, externally. And so to combat that, we've been able to, get more folks into the schools, and so that they understand what's really going on in the schools. And another role that we've been able to play is to be a conduit for information to the parents, and for, more importantly, for the parents to be a listening taking a listening posture of what's going on with the parents and what their issues are around the cluster. That's been, I think, key, because oftentimes some parents have felt as though and some folks around the cluster have felt as though the information flow may have completely been one-sided. They hear, different directives, or they hear about things that's going on in the district, but we don't hear enough about what's going on with them. And so the work that we've been doing, through the outreach work that we've been doing in the cluster has been facilitating, a better communication level with the respective schools. So what we've done here, some good examples, kind of the work that I was saying. For instance, at King, the Mandarin Immersion Program, we've worked with community partners such as Albina Head Starts to ensure that we have the participation level that we want, and that we need in terms of the schools, the community surrounding the schools, and maybe those who may not have known about programs being able to market this great program and great opportunity to those parents. We've worked with community partners such as I mentioned, Albina Head Start and Mr. Herndon. We've also worked with, for instance, PTA presidents around the cluster to facilitate a greater kind of communication with their respective constituencies at their schools. One of the things that we've done that we're going to do on an ongoing basis is having a PTA listening session on a quarterly basis with the respective PTA presidents around the cluster. And this, we just had one recently that went fairly well, and was very important information that had come out during that time. And we also, this summer, for instance, going forward, other than the quarterly meetings, we're going to be doing extensive outreach, continuing our extensive outreach concerning the King Mandarin Immersion Program. We're also going to be doing, working with the Boise Elliott Humboldt community and school to fulfill the administrative directive relative to community outreach involving their proposed name changing process. So we'll be doing community organizing and as well as engagement of those respective communities working with parents there at Boise Elliott Humboldt this summer to ensure that all the voices of those respective communities are heard about their name-changing process, as well as working with Vernon, for instance, on their early kindergarten transition. So we just want to be able to, I think, with the work that we've been able to do, we've made, I think, some progress, as I'm being told anecdotally, but we do realize that we can go much further. We can get many more voices heard in the room. We're working very, very closely with, as I mentioned, the PTA presidents around the cluster and working with parents. And although we, not exactly where we want to be, we think we've made some tremendous progress. However, we have a lot of work to go, and we certainly the tenor of the discussions have changed, and so we're very, very happy about that. So I won't talk ad nauseum. I just wanted to kind of give a brief discussion about what's going on. And one of the things that we also, I'm so quick to try to get on with the other part of the presentation. One of the things that came out during the listening session that we had with the PTA presidents is to, one school had suggested that we utilize the realtors in the area to better promote and market our schools. So what we're going to be doing this summer, we've spoken to all the respective principals, is to create marketing videos for each school so that we can market those videos to, for instance, realtors and to the neighborhood associations and to individuals. So utilizing, our technical capability and just all the great things that's going on around this summer, and more importantly, not just highlighting the schools, but highlighting the great principals and great teachers that surround our cluster. And that's what, when parents are looking at schools, like I said at the outset, it's not about just about bricks and mortar. It's about people, and it's about, they want to know about the great teachers and the great programs and the great individuals and the great kids that's there. So we'll be doing that as well here this summer, working on that project. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And with your permission, let me introduce the first team, Boise Elliott Humboldt School.
Antonio, did you want us to just hear this entire presentation and then have questions, or do you want to have questions in the middle? Like, if somebody has questions of just Richard? Everybody okay with just going through the whole thing first? Okay, great. Thank you.
Good evening, and I hope you're excited like we're excited. At our building, that's what it's all about. So I'm seeing some smiles and you're still alive and well. I like it. This is a good thing. I will be reading from our principal, who is not here this evening, so forgive me if it doesn't look right. But good evening, Superintendent Smith and board members. My name is Kevin Bacon, and I am the principal at Boise Elliott Humboldt, and thank you for everyone that continues to include Boise Elliott Humboldt. Under your direction, we were able to make this merger happen. That was incredible, with a lot of energy. And I'm also going to segue, before I continue with Kevin's presentation, that this was not done in isolation. You have tonight Molly Chun, who is here, who was incredibly in charge of helping the merger happen. We are continuing it to happen in such in-depth and delightful ways. So here we go back to Mr. Bacon. I am here tonight with my assistant principal, Evelyn Flowers, my STEAM coordinator, Kylene Parks, and our PTA president, Miss Angie Harris. As we discussed among ourselves what we would like tonight's presentation to look like, we decided was upon a non-linear focus that represented the, non-linear focus that represents the integrated road we are on to prepare BEH students for their futures as leaders in the community. The brief video that we have prepared is centered around STEAM, STEAM is the integration of science, technology, engineering, arts, and math in every grade level with the support of our critical business partners. STEAM is the core and is our hub. You will hear mention of restorative justice, right brain initiatives, PBIS, Courageous Conversations Care, and PASS teams, and the Common Core standards. With STEAM as our hub, those initiatives are our spokes. For us, this brief video captures what's going well, what we're currently working on, and what we hope to continue to accomplish next year. Thank you, and we will be available for questions afterwards.
At Boise Elliott Humboldt School, we are committed to creating an environment where students engage in rigorous learning opportunities that challenge them to think critically about their place in the world. Becoming a STEAM school in partnership with the Portland Metro STEM Partnership has helped us make that happen. As we grow our programs and solidify our identity during year 2 of this transformation, we have chosen to not isolate our initiatives and instead look to STEAM as the uniting force for our students, teachers, and the greater community. BEH has long been known for its work around equity as a beacon equity school. We have focused on culturally competent teaching pedagogy and been intentional about examining race in our practice. Infusing STEAM into this work has helped us increase the motivation for our students, an integral part of our equity care practices. We see our focus on STEAM as a way to ignite a passion for learning and heighten engagement for our students, while also preparing them for college and 21st century careers. STEAM education creates an integrated learning environment that encourages problem solving and persistence, critical thinking, and teamwork across the subjects. We want our students to see themselves as capable problem solvers that can adapt and strategize in the face of challenges, both academic and personal. Our vision for BEH students is to have a passion for learning and activism that extends beyond the classroom, and to believe that they have the capacity to make change in their community. Through STEAM curriculum camps, intentional team planning, and focused professional development opportunities, our teachers have shifted to using the next generation science standards as they integrate their core curriculum with STEAM subjects. We continue to build on our pre-K through 8th grade curriculum map, ensuring our students build upon experiences as they move across the grade levels. And students at every grade are participating in multiple field experiences in partnership with community organizations and environmental educators. We have written grants and established deep partnerships with Clean Rivers Education, Metro, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Intel, OMSI, the Business Education Compact, and many more. We also work hard to demonstrate to our students that they are capable by being intentional about bringing in mentors and educators of color. We have also added a middle school math team, a robotics club, mock trial, a student council, as well as built our parent network with a PASS team and increased family outreach. This year, STEAM, equity, and PBIS have flowed seamlessly for our teachers and students. By uniting our initiatives, the same successful impact we've seen happen with our students has happened with our staff. The 5 E's instructional model is used for both student lesson delivery and teacher professional development. And the intentional lesson planning and delivery that's used in teacher STEAM classroom lesson is also used with PBIS coaching for teachers. We are building on the student feedback loop as we build in time for teacher teams to reflect and plan together, just as they do with their students. We have a variety of tools to measure our success, including student, teacher, and community surveys, supported by research-based measurement tools. But we also measure our success with the anecdotal stories from teachers' classrooms, the parental engagement at field experiences and STEAM night, and the pure excitement in a room when students see the daily schedule reflect STEAM Pals or a visit to Intel. We also see the impact as we analyze our student suspension data and see the decrease in overall suspensions and suspensions for our African American students. As we look to the further expansion of our STEAM program in year 3, we are excited to know that the academic rigor and relevance for our students will continue to grow. We are also excited to see how the new addition of restorative justice can further support our learners. We see restorative justice fitting seamlessly with the constructive coping skills STEAM addresses by providing a support system to get below the line with student concerns. It will also help give increased structure to dialogues between students, much like TalkMoves has in our academic settings. And it will continue to demonstrate for our students that problem-solving skills and persistence are essential to seeing both academic and personal growth.
Did you guys enjoy that? Good evening, Superintendent Smith, board members, Jefferson Clusters, principals, and other PTA presidents. My name is Angie Harris, and I am a parent and the PTA president at Boise Elliott Humboldt School. I am here today to talk to you a little bit about the STEAM program, and my current views on it. The first thing is change in students' attitudes. I've noticed a drastic change in student attitudes in the school regarding more excitement about the school, eager to learn exciting things, more willing to work with others, and also the shy ones, watching them just burst out. And it's kind of nice to see. Student stories, walking around talking to kids and just asking them how they're doing, how is school, and they're more excited about school now. And just to see an excitement in their faces saying, oh, we get ready to go on a field trip, Miss Harris, or we get ready to do this, Miss Harris. Actually, I've been canoeing, Miss Harris, and it's just exciting to see them excited about things and going hiking and learning about Fish and Wildlife Services. I just enjoy watching kids and listening to their stories and how this has really changed them and impacted them, especially things that they never done before. Really exciting. STEAM night. We just recently had STEAM night at our school, and on my way to the school, I was walking down the street, and I saw kids running with their parents in hand, and they were like, and the parents is telling them to hold up, and they're like, no, Mom, we got to get in there. We got to get in there. We're going to miss something. But going into the school and seeing all the tables lined up with different activities and watching the parents engaged, sitting there with their child, and the child is teaching their parents how this is what we learned today, or this is what we learned this month in the classroom, and the parents is really looking at it and trying to help them build something out of a little model, like a little piece of sorry about this, like little sticks. You use like kebabs with gumdrops and little cups you stack up on top of each other, see how fast you can do that, and watching the parents try to do it as fast as their student it was really fun and to watch, going around the different classrooms and seeing how they dissect salmon on a computer, on a laptop. And I'm like, wow, and this one student said, let me show you how to do this, Miss Harris, and I sat down with them and they actually showed me how to go in there laparoscopically and try to take out, the little eggs and stuff in the salmon. So it was kind of fun to watch, just watching the kids be able to explain themselves in the classrooms. It was really exciting on that. PTA support. What we do in PTA is we do fundraisers, and with those fundraisers, we're able to fulfill teachers' wish lists by different projects using bus transportation to and from wherever they're going for their field trips. We also pay for kids that can't afford to go on the field trips, and so we're able to offset some of the costs of that. We use that in special projects when the teachers need money for their special projects in the classrooms. We're able to help them do that, like some of the fish we have fish located all around the school, and the PTA help pay for that. So it's a lot of different things that PTA supports. We also volunteer, and we're there as a sounding block so they can come to us if they need help and anything like that. So Boise Elliott Humboldt is a really excellent school. I've been a part of that school since my son, who is now 24 years old, believe it or not, is in there, and now I have a daughter that's in the 8th grade now. And it's changed her tremendously. She's a talker, she's a go-getter. She's outgoing like I am, and sometimes we had to rechannel her energy, and that's why I had to tell the teachers to rechannel her energy and put something exciting in place so these kids can stay engaged, and that's one of the things they have been doing. So I appreciate Boise Elliott Humboldt for doing that. I appreciate me as being a PTA parent, PTA parent, yeah, that's right, parent president, and stepping up to the plate to want to help the school out.
All right, thank you.
So officially, that's the end of our presentation. If it's time for questions, we're available, or we can certainly wait until later.
I'd be happy to entertain questions. Steve?
Ms. Flowers told me I needed to go easy on her.
I just-
Oh, come on.
Which is interesting to me because I'm always easy on everybody. The Common Core state standards that you're now pushing, how did those, I mean, all the stuff on your movie was all STEAM and was wonderful, the type of thing that we should be doing in each school. But the Common Core state standards, are they pushing on you in some manner to detract, or do they detract in any way from your program, do you think?
So the wonderful thing that you're going to get this evening is when I don't have the best answer, I defer to who does. So Ms. Parks will take that one.
That's really easy on you.
So as an instructional specialist, I help all of our teachers with their planning and curriculum mapping. And I would say that the state standards at this point have helped just guide us and channel us in really narrowing in what we're going to do. So we're using the next generation science standards and matching that with Common Core and making sure that everything we're doing in the classroom has the highest impact possible. So we're really focused and intentional. When we're reading about science and math. So everything is integrated, and I think the standards at this point have helped us with that. We have a lot of way to go with professional development for our teachers, but we take every opportunity to make sure when we're talking about STEAM that we're also talking about our standards so that we're getting the most bang for our buck.
There's a lot of work involved in the program, the things that I saw by your teachers. What are you doing to subtract other things? For instance, do you have your teachers all write out their lesson plans, which in my opinion is not necessary, but I mean, it takes up all this extra time for them. Do you do that, or do you?
We've been really intentional about how we plan and what initiatives we take on. And like you saw with kind of that circle, we make sure that everything fits together. So when we are talking about equity, we're talking about STEAM. When we're writing lesson plans, we all have a universal lesson plan template. We also do a curriculum camp where our teachers come on their own time during the summer, and we support them with writing curriculum. And then I have the luxury of having a full-time position to support our teachers, which I think makes a big impact on what they're able to do and the amount of time it takes to plan these field experiences for kids. And make sure that they're aligned with a pre and a post activity in the classroom so that it's really connected. So our teachers are taking on a lot, but we're also intentional about making sure that we don't add in things that don't have a high impact.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I'll make a quick comment.
Matt, go ahead.
When I saw the video start, I was hoping it was going to be the khaki pants dance.
Oh, show that. The khaki dance, yeah.
For those of you who don't know, it is available to watch on YouTube, yes. And maybe you're not in the video, but I know you two are in the video, including Principal Bacon. I recommend taking a look at it because it's a really fun way to address the uniform issue at the school, and I got a kick out of it when I saw it. So
it's on
thank
our
you.
Website.
The khaki pants.
The khaki dance.
Yeah. We could probably get IT on it.
Did you have something?
I'll just add the kudos in the comment of what a thrill it is to see the hands-on projects and the variety of enrichments and opportunities outdoors and that you're providing for students going up to the Bull Run, going down to the coast, going to the river. It's just fabulous. And as Director Beal said, of course, we want that for every child in our district, but the way that your team is really focusing around the STEAM piece and integrating it, it's just fantastic. So thank you so much, and thank you to all your leadership, parent leadership, past leadership of Principal Chun that sort of laid the groundwork, and now the leadership of Principal Bacon and his entire staff. So just really thrilled.
Thank you. Sure.
Oh, sorry, before you leave, just wanted to say my own positive thoughts. I'll first start with Principal Molly Chun, who worked really, really hard to make that transition. And now you've moved on to make another transition happen, but I just want to say thank you because I know it really laid the foundation. And a huge thank you to you and your team for understanding what was required and how to step in and continue that momentum. And I also want to say is what a great example of how we often hear of a lot of initiatives. We know that a lot of things are being thrust on educators, so I really appreciate how you've been intentional and kind of shown a path on how we can, in fact, support our staff and why these are still important initiatives to move forward, because they really do raise the bar. I mean, that just looks so exciting. I want to go canoeing. I want to go do these field things. I mean, it's so engaging and so relevant to them. So thank you, and thank you for being 24 years. Thank you very much for stepping in and leading our parents and helping support in that way. Thank you.
Thank you to all of you. Thank you.
So the next team that I want to introduce is King, but I want to let you know that Principal Bacon wanted to be here. Unfortunately, he had an emergency last night. He's fine. He's at home resting. So Kevin, your team was just excellent, and I know he's watching us.
They were. Who's next?
King.
First name basis now, right?
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
It's
Hello.
great to see you guys again. So I'm Erin Berg. I'm the principal of King. This is my first year as the principal of King, and I brought a great crowd here. This is Miss Melody Hill Adams. She's a first, second grade teacher. She's been at King 7 years. This is Nick Mathern. He is my incoming PTA president for next year. And then Kenny Butler has been my PTA president this year, but on and off for how many years?
Lots.
So I wanted to bring this team because they can truly speak to where King has been and where King is going. And I think that the thing that I wanted to start with is today, as I looked out my window and I saw a group of about 25 middle schoolers get off the bus because they're spending the week at Lewis and Clark Law Camp. And just the way that it made me feel to watch the kids get off the bus, their parents greet them, and to know that a lot of the hard work that we've done this year in really establishing our partnerships is paying off. And I will say that the biggest payoff that I received this year was about a month ago when I shook President Obama's hand and he said, "Thanks for what you do." And it's not really what I do, it's what these people do, it's what the kids do, it's what my teachers do. And we've been really privileged to be part of the Turnaround Arts Grant and to receive that status. And as we think about what's going well, to really have the chance to be part of this programming, the Turnaround Arts, the IB programming, and then to have been chosen as a Mandarin immersion school going into next year, I feel that we're really lucky to get this opportunity. And what's going well is the enthusiasm and support that I have from my teachers, from my parents, from my staff. I mean, it's really the most positive place that I've ever worked in, and the teachers are really hardworking and dedicated to both the standards and the kids and the high expectations that we have. And so I wanted to speak a little bit to some of the programs that we had and then talk about some of the directions we're going. I wanted Miss Melody to speak about the IB implementation and the implementation of the Turnaround Arts because she was there at the forefront of that.
Good evening, Ms. Smith and board members. This is the first time I've ever been before the board, so it's a little intimidating. But I'm planning on going into leadership someday, so I better get used to it.
We're glad you're here. So.
Thank you, thank you. I have the pleasure of working at King. This is going on my 7th year. I had started out at 3rd grade, and now I'm a 1-2 blend, and then transitioning back into a straight 2nd grade next year. And when I got there 7 years ago, I found out it was an IB school. I didn't know much about it, and it has been a journey. It's taken a long time for teachers in general to get buy-in, but once you start getting the training and seeing how IB is rolled out, it's really exciting because it's a student-led implementation of curriculum and what students want to learn. And so finding out how to have students inquire about their learning and how the process comes about with kids was a bit challenging because we're so used to setting everything out and following a curriculum. But so it takes a while to get into the motion of things. But it's really been a really nice experience to have children wonder and bring back that sense of wonder and be able to kind of guide the children into learning things that they want to learn. So that's been a successful thing, something that's been really working for us at King. And the second thing that I feel like has been working since we received our Turnaround Arts Grant and our partnership with Right Brain has been phenomenal. I'm glad to see that we're going to continue on with it. The kids are performing in front of large groups of people. We have children who have joined Thera Memories band, who he gets national, recognition. And it's just been a really delightful thing to see with our students. We have our dance program, African Dance, and we have also started African drumming, and the kids have been showcasing their talents. We've had theater, obviously the performance with Sarah Jessica Parker at the White House. It's just been a really great partnership, and with Right Brain also partnering with our Turnaround Arts Grant. It's nice to have arts come into our school, and the kids are exposed to sculpture and photography, in addition to, drama and music and things like that. So that's what's been up at King, and I'm looking really forward to keep, getting into arts and with the kids in the coming years and seeing how that all plays out.
And I wanted to bring Kenny because Kenny can truly speak to parent involvement over time and the work that parents have done both to increase parent engagement and involvement, but also our equity work. And I wanted to ask him to come tonight to kind of talk about the path that has led us here and where we're going.
Hi, my name is Ken Butler, and like you said, I've been PTA president. I've also been on the state PTA, and I volunteer like 27 hours a day. But actually, my thing is being at King's School. I mean, it's like the parent engagement part for us has been very difficult. It's been very difficult in the past, but lately we've found some things that work for us, like our Latinos Moms Mother's Day thing brings in people, and this year actually with the IB exhibition, and a lot of our parents that really can't make it are starting to come out and make it. And this year we had something different with our Turnabout Arts program. During our auction we had kids draw a lion head, and so we had the opportunity of one of our third graders to create our new mascot, and we put it on a t-shirt, and we were sponsored by the Portland Observer. So all the kids in the school got a t-shirt this year with our new mascot that one of their fellow classmates did, and just seeing them all wear their t-shirt and just seeing how proud he was that he created that. And I mean, those are some of the things. And coming in with our new program that we're going to have coming next year, being a little more bicultural, so reaching out and doing different things. And I want to reach out to the Jefferson Cluster. And also this year I got the opportunity, 4 years ago, our graduating 8th grade class, I got to chaperone them at their graduating party at Jeff. So, and those are things that you like to see, because from 4 years to 4 years now, just to see how they grow. And, and it's just to make me feel that how important it is for them to know that me being a parent, I have kids there, my kid's 29, and they went to King, and I went to King myself, and now I have grandkids to go there. So, so I have a lot invested there. And I mean, there's been a lot of wonderful things that happen there, and I know that this year, with me being on some other the committees and getting out and networking with Alberta Street and make them know that we're there, because a lot of people never knew the King even exists there. But we have a lot to offer, and our kids have a lot to offer.
And we have the biggest group of families that Blazer game nights.
Yes, and that's another thing.
And I just want to take this opportunity to thank Kenny. I mean, he really does volunteer every single day at King's School and is someone who's counted on by the kids and the parents and the teachers and me. And I will tell you, a couple weeks ago, one of the kids said, "I saw the butler at the grocery store." The butler? Kenny Butler. So thank you, Kenny. Yeah. And so Nick is our incoming PTA president, and I wanted him to come, number one, to meet you, but also number two, to talk about the efforts that we've had this year with some new parent engagement with our kindergarten group, and then also the work that we did really hand in hand with the teachers and the PTA for our recruiting for our Mandarin immersion program.
Thank you, Erin, and thank you, Superintendent Smith and board. We're certainly glad to be here, and I'm happy to tell you a little bit about what we're doing at King Schools. The folks that I'm sitting with know much more. I'm really a brand new parent. I'm the parent of a rising first grader, so I've only been with the school for a year, but we've had a great experience so far. Our family's been very happy there, and we've been very happy to have opportunities to be engaged. And I'll start by just saying that your work is having an impact, and I think that we are one of the families that your work has been specifically targeted to. We certainly were a family that looked at our full range of options when we were getting ready to send our daughter to kindergarten, and we are very glad to be at King. And I will say that in part our initial interest and attraction had to do with the investments that have been made. The IB programming, the Turnaround Arts Grant, these were certainly things that got us excited and made us feel like there was really a good home for our daughter to be there. So that's something we're excited about. And I will also say that coming into this, I knew that those investments don't last forever. And with the last year, the SIG grant this year, we had some concerns, but I will say that the additional support that the district has provided and the additional support that Erin has been soliciting to continue to bring and increase personnel at the school has felt great. And so, I don't think that any of us feel like there's a cliff coming at the end of this SIG grant, which is something that, frankly, some of us were concerned about. So I want to thank you for that. I think that does do exactly what it's intended to do, which is speak to parents who might otherwise opt out of the neighborhood and might look for schools elsewhere, that we are actively opting in, and I'm hopeful that more families, and actually we're seeing this, that more families are doing this. The Mandarin program is bringing even more neighborhood families who might have otherwise looked elsewhere to give King a second look, and that's been exciting. At our PTA meeting last week, we had twice as many folks as we usually have, and I wondered who are all these new families, and they're new kindergarten families who are already looking to be involved. And so we know that parent engagement is increasing, and it's something we're very excited about, and we're frankly very proud to be King families and to be a part of the work that's happening there. But we also know that means that there's challenges, and there's a lot of programming and a lot of things that could be potentially very diverse programming happening. And so as a family group, we really want to be doing what we can to support the school community to create a unified school cultural community, and that's something that we're working really hard on at the PTA. We've made a commitment to make sure that as the Mandarin immersion program begins, that the families who are specifically attracted to that program are brought into the larger school community, and that all of the other work that's been happening for several years is incorporated into this new energy at the school. So that's something that's very important to us. We want to, just as parent volunteers, be supportive in what ways we can to the good work that the school leadership and the teachers are really taking the lead on, and we're glad to just be at the table, and we're very appreciative of the continued investment in the King community.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that the end?
Well, I think just the only thing that I would speak to was what Nick mentioned is as we move forward, knowing that our SIG funds have ended and we're looking at sustainability. So every partnership that comes to the table with us, I ask, how are we going to continue this on when there aren't funds to seed it? And so we've developed a partnership with Therap Memory and his band. I've developed a partnership with Right Brain that will continue without our funds. I have a local business that we're trying to make it sustainable, so the Kids Artist sold there, which then funds their work at King School. PSU we have a partnership with, and so every opportunity that we have to have this continue forward is we really grab onto those opportunities, and that speaks to both Kenny's work out in the community of getting the Alberta arts community involved in ways that feed into the school and don't just drop in and drop out. So that's what we're really looking at as we head forward with our programming. So thank you for your support.
Thank you. Questions, board members? Matt? Steve?
I have the same question about where you've got all these activities in your school going on, and next year will be tougher yet. What have you subtracted from your teachers' workload? Have you subtracted anything from that workload in the last year?
I don't give them lunch anymore. No, I'm just kidding. Well, what we're really looking at is how this programming supports the best practices and the high standards. And so, you asked a really good question about Common Core. We're in the lucky position that IB supports the Common Core. The Common Core standards have been a part of the IB inquiry. So as we're moving into the future, our IB planners already reflects that high level of student engagement and the student inquiry. And so what I really try to do is support my teachers with opportunities to lesson plan, to work together. I've embedded planning into their day long before it was a requirement because our teachers need that time. And so we use our specials time and we use some of our added benefits to take the load off of the teachers and to give them more time to work together, to plan, to have that curriculum mapping opportunity. And then one thing that I was lucky to do with my SIG funds is support my teachers in professional development opportunities. So I actually pay for them to attend the workshops. For example, we're all going, like 6 of us are going to Austin this summer to do IB training, and that's paid for out of some continued SIG funds. And so I really try to support their professional development, like taking some of that monetary burden off as a teacher incentive. So that's how we do it.
I'm recalling that we have 4 IB elementary schools, K-8 schools, and it's King, Vernon, Sabin, and Skyline, I believe. And the programs have been around long enough that these students are starting to transition into high school. And regardless of whether there's a high school program, I understand that it's an incredibly beneficial program for the K-8 students, and it will prepare them well for high school. But I'm also curious to know if we are looking at whether or not they can continue on in an IB program through high school, or where we're at with that conversation.
We had Madison High School actually considering whether or not they would apply to become an IB school, and they were in the process of just looking at that. I don't know that they've decided to move forward with that or not at this point, but I know it was the school that most recently was actively engaged in studying that for themselves.
What grade level are the kids at who have started from kindergarten up at this point? I mean, do we have a little time still to figure this piece out, or?
No, we have 8th graders.
You do already?
That we're looking at options.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I agree that we need to look at this because we have the 2 other, Cleveland and Lincoln are our only high school IB options at this point, right? So that was on my list of questions too. Not necessarily just for you to answer, but just to raise it and to put that on the list of questions, because it really does seem that we're missing an opportunity for the students to not allow them to continue to articulate to an IB high school program.
And it is something that as a parent community, teacher community, that we have asked that question, and there's a want for that in our community.
Absolutely.
I also had a question in terms of the Mandarin program, and do you have any sense yet of what the mix of students will be in terms of native heritage speakers? Or
We have very low numbers of native Mandarin speakers. I mean, our program is mainly a one-way. We do have, at this point in time, about 5 native speakers of Mandarin that are dispersed between the two grades, both kindergarten and first grade. The dual language department has been actively recruiting Mandarin-speaking families to become part of our program, but because the program is really a one-way, there's less of a need for that as a base to start us off, and more of the interest base. And we are also having a summer institute for 2 weeks for our families that are coming into both kindergarten and first grade to do some front loading and some work and getting them a little more exercise with the language and an introduction to the language.
That's great. And I just want to comment on how amazing the parent engagement's been, and thank you for all of your support over the years. You've been around for a long, long time, and we all noticed that, so, and thanks for stepping up too.
Actually, a good segue. I'm really curious about the community engagement. One of the things that we talked about during the Jefferson enrollment balancing was the need to increase community engagement around King and other schools too within the cluster. And it sounds like that has really happened, and you're seeing some of the fruits of that labor. I'm curious to know, and I know it's June, not everyone knows where they're going to be going in the fall, but you mentioned a number of new parents of incoming kindergartners. Do you have a sense of what that incoming class might look like, or are you capturing perhaps other students within other grades too in the school?
Well, we have almost completely filled our Mandarin program for kindergarten, and then almost filled it for first grade. So incoming next year, we have at least 2 classes of the Mandarin program, and then we right now currently have a full class of kindergartners that have registered. Okay. And then over the next few months, as you know, parents like me don't always register their students June 1st for kindergarten. But this year we had 3 kindergartens that were all neighborhood. So I'm looking at, my forecasting numbers are 100 kindergartners. Right now I have 4 first grades going into next year.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Follow up. So sort of a comment or question. I mean, so just so people are, I mean, there was through the school improvement grant, there was a huge infusion of funds, huge opportunities, very high per student funding, and fantastic. Mm-hmm. And then as you have been working so hard, we've all been concerned about the cliff that was coming. Mm-hmm. So it sounds as if between additional, and also as we know with more students, we bring more funding. And you had a pretty low enrollment during those years when there was this huge grant. So it's sounding like, and I'm hoping that we're reaching that balancing point where you have enough new kids coming in and the funding that comes with them, as well as all the hard work that you and your staff and parents are doing to bring in the partnerships and new opportunities. Are you feeling like you're
I am
that?
very, very much feeling like that, and I think a lot of it is the number one. It's the pursuit of more students. King does need to be a full and vital school,
Right.
and adding Mandarin immersion, while it does add students, I think what it also speaks to is an investment in our school and having our neighborhood students. I mean, we have a very strong neighborhood program, and we want to remain King with Mandarin immersion program in King, because we are King School and it is all one school. And I think also with the really careful eye that we all have towards when a partner approaches us of how is this going to sustain over time? How is this going to live in the kids?
Right.
Because what it really needs to be is the kids who think of themselves as artists, as drummers, as singers, as dancers. And so the more it lives within the kids, the more sustainable it is. So I do believe with the balancing of both those things that we're looking at a very bright future of King with a school full of kids.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Go ahead. I was also just going to say what a difference teacher and principal leadership makes for any school community. So I want to thank you for your longevity at the school. I also want to acknowledge Kim Patterson for setting a foundation as the principal at King for so long, and thank you for the energy you're bringing to it. It's awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I wanted to hear, first of all, I also want to start out with Mr. Butler. The first time I came to visit King School, you were there to greet me, so it's good to see you again, and thank you for your commitment. I also, we've heard as we begin immersion programs, or as immersion programs, you just articulated really clearly, we are King School first and foremost, and then we have a Mandarin immersion program. We are an entire school. We want our kids to be infused with this. I'd be curious to hear if anybody wants to share what their perspective is that's such a hard dynamic because you'll have what could be seen as 3 separate programs, right? You have people that chose because of the arts, you have people that are choosing because it's their neighborhood, and you have people who are choosing because of the immersion program, and occasionally those can come in, could potentially conflict, so I'd be curious to hear what you all are working on to help that not come into
Anyone want
conflict.
to take that?
Well, actually, Melody, our last PTA meeting, we did invite some of the incoming Mandarin parents, and a few of them came like at our Mother's Day event, and I mean, they said that they wanted to have their own group, and right there, it's not, that's not what we're about. So I showed her how we work with the Latino moms, and we work as a team. So anything we do, we unite together. So, but actually, so far, so good, and a few of the parents had some good feedback with them, been working with them, and we're gonna work over the summer so we can come up with a nicer PTA and a nice environment in our school.
I would second that and say that I think that many of the families who are actively opting in are looking for a community to be a part of. And so while there are certainly folks who want to make sure that as many resources as possible are brought to bear for the program, the academic program that their young people are enrolled in, they also understand that having the entire community wrapped around them is really a critical piece of their education. And so I think that is something that we can achieve. It's certainly one of our challenges that we're facing going forward, but it's something that many of us as parents are looking to actively get in front of and really help to coordinate. And I'll just add to that we were encouraged by a certain level of optimism that we observe in the school, and I don't know if you've had a chance to see this, but a survey came out a couple of weeks ago that I think reflected very well on the school climate. It was specifically, so the TEL survey, specifically talked to educators in the school, and the responses from King School were well above average, both for other elementary schools in the state as well as for other elementary schools, other schools in Portland Public. And so we're certainly glad for all the good things happening across Portland Public. I think that the high level of regard that the staff have for what they see happening in the school is something that reflects, I think, optimism that then many of us as parents are happy to reflect back.
That's really great to hear. So I had, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Someone may have already answered this, so forgive me if you have, but just in terms of the Albina Head Start, do you have, off the top of your head, a sense of the enrollment from Albina Head Start into the new Mandarin program? Because that was one of the reasons for placing it there, because those students had not had access to our existing Mandarin.
And we've really worked with Richard Gilliam on we worked as a partnership. I went over to Albina Head Start a couple of times, and then he's been working with the director. I can let him speak to that specifically, because really what I concentrated on is my recruitment of King School kids and filled all my spots. But Richard and I did a lot of fellowshipping with the Albina Head Start, and currently have a really solid number of kindergarten families, and I know that he's continuing to work with them on having some more coming into the first grade, which is a little trickier just because of the age. But Richard, do you mind speaking to that a little bit? Sure. Sorry to.
Oh, thank you
thought
so
you
much.
were done.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we have a diverse enrollment
Yeah.
and that we're using the racial equity lens on who is getting access to the new program.
Right.
So just quickly, with respect to the Albina Head Start, we've been, as Principal Berg mentioned, we've been working together with Ronnie Herndon and Albina Head Start groups and parents. It's for the first grade, for the kindergarten, as mentioned, the slots I think we're exactly where we want to be. We hope to be a little bit further on the first grade. However, we're doing extensive community outreach as we speak. We have an ongoing phone calls to parents that we've been making, an outreach we're developing. We're actually meeting here in a couple of days to come up with even some more strategies in terms of the outreach here. Right now there's about 10, 15 more slots that we would like to see, but it's not unusual, my understanding, in speaking with Debbie Armendines and Michael Bacon in terms of these programs as we move into September, that those numbers normally through the summer, would fulfill themselves, to where we want them to be at. So we certainly have a plan, but it's not unusual to be at this point with a new immersion program. That's my understanding.
And one of the pieces that we had to take into consideration is because we were able to go over and meet with the current pre-K class at Albina Head Start, we were able to give them applications and have them, they came and they toured King and they had meetings at King. But because there's sort of a recapture that has to happen for the kids that have already left and gone into kindergarten in another school, that's been a lot of work on the street for Richard, who's been doing a lot of like backtracking, where are those students and how can we sort of bring them back in, knowing that now there is a program that they can take advantage of. And that was something that they said over at Albina Head Start, is being sort of frustrated with that. Here's my kids who are learning Mandarin and they don't have anywhere to go.
Right.
So there's definitely a lot of work that Richard has been doing to kind of come back and find those kids and invite them.
Great, thank
And
you.
if I could just say it in closing also, another big factor with those particular parents in our discussions with them has been the issue of transportation, which we've just recently crystallized here in the last couple of weeks, that we have been able to come up with, working with the transportation department, have been able to come up with a strategy toward the transportation issues for those Albina Head Start parents, which was a very big issue for them.
Thank you. I find that usually I'm always the last one to ask a question, and usually by the time it gets to me, my question has been answered, and that is exactly what Richard just did, because my question was, how are you collaborating and coordinating? So thank you very much, Richard. Appreciated that. Don't have to ask my question now. Any other questions from the board on? No. Thank you all very much for being here, and thank you for your hard work. Ockley Green, Chief Joseph, I bet, right? There we go.
Good evening, everyone. So tonight, I'm Molly Chun, principal at Chief Joseph Ockley Green. We have kind of a larger group. On my left is Kristen Moon. She is our new instructional specialist. She will be heading up the STEAM work at Chief Joseph Ockley Green. This year she was 8th grade science, 7th and 8th grade science. On my right, immediate right, is going to be Amber Gerber, who is the assistant principal on our K-3 campus. And next to her is Jess Thompson. She is our PTA president. And next to her is Shonda Justice, who is our PTA vice president on the Ockley campus, right? So, to say the least, this year has been a challenge. It's been a challenge in many positive ways, as well as some real challenging, trying ways. This year started last spring when our consolidation was announced. It was February, March, when things really started rolling, and we started, really coming to some decisions about what the buildings would look like, grade configurations, just all kinds of things. I like to say that this year has been either learning to drive, going 80 miles an hour, or building an airplane, learning to fly. A lot of the strategies that we used in creating the consolidation with Boise Elliott Humboldt, we tried to replicate, but it was a very different outcome. It was challenging, again, to say the least, to really consolidate two schools with very different demographics and very different needs and wants. Being in the Jefferson cluster for as long as I have been, it was my goal and vision that we created space for children that really gave them everything they deserve and created high expectations for all kids. The summer really was about the buildings, the facilities, the movement of 2 different teaching staffs, a lot of hiring. My assistant principals were hired, actually we formed a team August 12th. So we started working together as of August 12th. The buildings themselves needed a lot of cleaning, a lot of organizing. We shifted the 2 campuses, so the staffs were combined with a combined seniority list, and then grade levels were staffed with K3 on the Chief Joe campus and 4-8 on the Ockley campus. And that meant a tremendous amount of movement of materials, of technology, of teachers. Both campuses required a lot of cleaning out old stuff to make room for the new. Really and truly, that was about probably 75% of our summer. On the 4-8 campus, we were able to remodel the upstairs so that there was a safe traffic pattern for middle school kids. During the years when there were close to 800 kids on the Ockley campus, the main hallway had been divided into 3 closed off office spaces. And so middle school students had to go downstairs and up to get from one side of the upstairs to the other. And so that was something the facilities agreed to, and it was great because now we have this wonderful passageway, huge hallway between the 2 sections of the upstairs. And then we had an industrial arts room that really just kind of became a collecting place for lots of stuff. And that room was completely gutted. All the built-ins were removed, and we were able to create a beautiful dance studio with a Marley floor, mirrors, and now we have a dance program. So again, that's kind of what summer was. And as we were able to form as a team and hiring was, finally finished, we began to establish systems and programs that we needed to make sure articulated across both campuses. The first thing that we really needed to work on was community building and communication. That's been a challenge all year long due to 2 different schedules. We have a different schedule for each school. So K3 starts earlier, gets out earlier, and 4-8 obviously has a later start and a later dismissal. So that really impacts the professional development time and time that teachers can actually meet and work together and develop community. It was a challenge for our Mondays. It was a challenge for our late openings. Those times really were about an hour and a half for each of our Mondays and late openings. But with all that said, we were able to establish positive behavior PBIS system across both campuses. The staff was able to train once a month together with Drew Lawrence, our PBIS coach. So we established the PBIS strategies and systems and interventions. And in addition to that, SIT teams, or SIT, which is student intervention teams, on both campuses. So with everything that we did as a K-8 in all of my experiences as a K-8 principal, now it's a K-8 on 2 campuses. So it still feels like 2 schools in a lot of ways, but I think we're getting there and really getting to a point where we're feeling like 1 school, 2 campuses. And then again, I forgot to mention this small point. In August, we were informed that we were indeed a priority school with the state of Oregon. It's not funny, but it just kind of how our year has been. And so we found out in August that it was a strong possibility, and it was, I believe, October 23rd that the final announcement was in fact made that we were a priority school. And for all of my colleagues who were creating their CAPs with the Comprehensive Achievement Plan over the year before, we had from October 23rd to November 15th to actually do a self-assessment, create a leadership priority team, and write a CAP plan that was implemented November 16th. So, yeah, we were flying, but we were building the plane as we went. But what we did, and we took advantage of that, actually a great resource. So in our CAP, we created not only systems and programs that supported foundational needs of our kids' foundational skills, but we wanted to include in our plan those programs that really create self-efficacy and help kids really learn to persevere. So my connections that I had with the STEAM and STEM work at Boise, we were able to bring over to Ockley, to both Ockley and Chief Joseph. See, I still do this, to the K-3 campus and 4-8 campus. So in addition to PBIS, we wrote into our CAP the STEAM work. We have a STEAM leadership team of about, I think, 10 folks. We have a Right Brain Initiative team, again, of about 10 folks. And our equity team is, we have 12 people. And on that team, there are 4 members of our care team. So we were trying to really create teacher leadership and establish some programming and make sure that we were implementing RTI, response to intervention, to really address those foundational needs that our students have. It was kind of crazy at first, I will be the first to admit, but as we made it through the year, we began to see some real rewards. The Department of Fish and Wildlife brought the Salmon Project to both of our campuses. They brought the I'm going to let Kristen talk about it in a minute. They brought the Lampreys, and they brought the they're bringing the mussel program next year. Next year we will have schoolyard habitat established on the 4-8 campus and a birding program where data will be collected and processed through the Audubon Society. Kristen wrote a grant last summer with Susan Jordan, Project Lead the Way, that brought robotics and engineering to our middle school. And that will be extended so that we will have actually Robotics 1 and Robotics 2, Engineering 1 and Engineering 2 for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. Our Right Brain Initiative program, it's been really exciting. We had our first buddy classrooms at 3rd grade and 8th grade. They had photography with Julie Keefe, and did a buddy back and forth photography project. Beth Bundy, who we hired this summer, is our visual arts teacher, and she was a Right Brain artist in residence. So she brings an amazing wealth of information and experience. She was part of the D School, Design School from Stanford. She and Kristen are working together to really bring design thinking through STEAM for next year. Our media specialist is pretty amazing, and she began with inquiry this year on the 4-8 campus. She will be on both campuses next year, along with our art teacher. Our dance teacher was an artist in resident until we could get him certified as a licensed teacher, and that was December. Damon Keller was a Jefferson dancer himself, and is now our official dance teacher on both campuses. So we're really, like I said earlier, we're trying very hard to bring, to create, a school where where improvement is really important. We all know that, foundational skills, but that we provide a balance and kids have other ways to develop self-efficacy and perseverance. So I guess I'm exchanging the challenges with the positives. As we go into next year, Kristen will be our STEAM instructional specialist. We have a reading instructional specialist, Mary Peak. They both will be on both campuses. Our dance will be on both campuses, art on both campuses. Our media specialist, she will be on both campuses as well. We wrote the Peak which is the PE for kindergarten through 8th grade grant through ODE. So we have full-time PE on both campuses. I believe we have one of the most robust enrichment programs, maybe even in the district, and it's been great for our kids. I'm gonna turn it over to Kristen, so she can talk about more of the STEAM partnerships, and then we will talk about the parent partnerships. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, everybody. How are you guys?
Good.
So our STEAM partnerships, one of the challenges that we've had this year is that we've had to create them from the ground up. And so luckily Molly brought some partnerships with us. One of them has been with the Department of Fish and Wildlife. We had the salmon project at our school, and they've been really great in working with us because one of the challenges has been the dual campus. Whatever we do on one campus, we want to offer the same opportunity on the other campus. So we had to convince them to find us 2 salmon tanks and give us 200 eggs and help us figure out how do we do lessons, because we do lessons from kindergarten through 8th grade, even though it's targeted at 4th grade. And through that, we did a buddy project called Stuff the Fish. Not a live fish, just a pretend one. Classes got together. The older kids walk over to the K3 campus. It's a little easier to walk older kids over. We've figured that out this year. That was one of the fun things. And they had a great time creating this piece of art, and they created with their buddy, each doing a side of a paper fish and then stuffing it with paper. And we hung them all around our campus and stuff like that. And it was really neat when they went to different campuses. The kids could be like, that was my fish. So that was a really nice connection. From that partnership, we have started piloting the lamprey project, which for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, they are working on raising and learning about lampreys. There isn't a lot known about lampreys, so it's kind of fun. That's been a little bit of a challenge. Also, next year, they are bringing the Freshwater Mussel Academy, which is not the mussels, but it's the mussels in the water. That will be with our 7th and 8th grade as well, learning about water quality and all of those kinds of things. They'll also be bringing the birding program. So our 6th grade will be doing the birding program and then partnering with our 3rd grade to teach our 3rd grade about birding as well. We have a partnership with the University of Colorado in Boulder. We are going to be working on their ozone monitoring project. We have been the school selected for the Pacific Northwest for students to wear personal ozone meters and go on these treks and add to a national database, of which then they get to collaborate with the other kids in the other states around these databases and with professionals around this real live research. It's pretty amazing. I don't know if you've worked with middle school kids, but they think that everything's been discovered in science and nothing's left for them. So these are really important opportunities for them to find out that actually there's still a ton of science we don't know, and that there really are jobs in science that they could do. We are working on, what?
The box.
The box? Oh, okay. She has little nicknames for things, so sometimes I have to figure out what they are. We're working on a partnership with a company called ADX. This year I was lucky enough to write a grant through Donors Choose and was able to get a 3D printer for my classroom, and my MESA students, and then as well as our engineering and robotics students, have been learning Autodesk Inventor, which is the current standard that is used around 3D printing. And with that partnership with ADX, they've made like a makerspace, if you don't know, a makerspace for people who are inventors and creators to come, and they can rent time there or purchase time there. And they're working on a partnership for us. We're talking a long-term partnership. They're very interested in being deeply invested with schools and teachers, as well as bringing design thinking. As Molly talked about, our art teacher has gone through D School with Stanford. And I have also gone through it at different times. We didn't know that about each other, so it's really been nice. But we're starting a class for kids to do in the spring around design thinking and working at ADX around being creators and inventors, around design for the other 90%. So taking what they know and not about making our lives easier, but about making lives easier for other people. And our big focus for the following years is about teaching our kids how to successfully fail. what we have found this year is our students do not know how to have something not work and keep going in that perseverance. And so we're talking about how do we build that program from kindergarten through 8th grade so that our students come to high school and then on to college with those skills about how do you successfully fail and keep working on that.
Thanks. Thanks. We have about 5 more minutes maximum, even for questions, so.
Oh, but we weren't done.
Well.
Okay.
Go fast.
I'm not paid. I'm not paid by the school district.
Me neither.
I will say that this is, you've heard me say it before. I was an educator for 12 years in a district that operated much differently than PPS does. The school that I was a middle school teacher at for many years, there were straight feeder schools, and there was identity within the community. So our kids felt really strongly that they were going to roll up to a certain high school, and that there was a community built into that identity starting in kindergarten that our kids have not had so much. I understand the work that you're doing now to build that and being really conscious about the racial equity educational policy as the lens for helping you build that. So I really appreciate the work that you're doing, and I understand that merge is part of that, and I really appreciate that work. I will also say that we've inherited a really, really bitter time, and it's been really painful for a lot of our community members, and it has been handled, I think, with as much grace and strength from Molly and her leadership and from our staff as possible. But it's been tough on parents. I think you've heard from some parents. I, as a middle school parent, have I think middle school is different because you kind of let them go more, and they have more independence. And so my child's experience has been has just been overwhelmingly positive, and his friends' experiences have been overwhelmingly positive. So when you hear as a PTA president, speaking to you, I can speak only from the people that come to the PTA meetings and from my own personal experience, which has been overwhelmingly positive. But I know from talking to other people that the merge has been really hard, both for Ockley parents and students and for Chief Joseph Ockley parents and students. And there's no way through it except through it. And so to really appreciate the work of your staff and of Molly, and it's good work, but it has been difficult.
We were just gonna come from the PTA board side of it. I work with volunteers, and it was nice seeing both campuses get parents together and come together and just enjoy one another and see all the kids being happy. And we have a really strong backpack club going. We have parent volunteers in that. We started a clothes closet. We have parent and volunteers with that. So we have a lot of things that are growing and getting a lot of family support from both sides.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay. So questions from the board? Comments, Steve?
Reading instructional specialist that you have, does that person work with children or?
We have a reading specialist who works with children for next year on the K-3 campus. And then our instructional specialist, who is Mary Peak, she works with teachers, coaching and supporting our data teamwork and assessment work.
Do you have people on your student intervention team that goes out into the homes?
No, this is the student intervention team is part of the PBIS, and it's a team of teacher, administration, counselor, and what happens is that during embedded PD time, teachers bring up students they may have concerns about, and then those students are brought to the SIT team, And it's really a way of supporting students with interventions before students are moved on to any program.
On your PBIS, when you read the PBIS literature, it's fairly extensive, I guess, they talk about getting rid of all your committees and bringing everybody in the community together around the PBIS program. You don't do that, do you?
We are trying really hard to integrate our teams, and really and truly the equity work and PBIS lead everything that we do in our building. So we're really looking at how to provide interventions for students that need it, how to look at data, and really with a very clear lens on equity.
Would you explain the busing situation that Ms. Justice was talking
I
about?
know about as much as everyone else does. We received a letter last week from Transportation, the same letter that students received, and I didn't have any heads up, and basically it's the NCLB bus that was established years ago is no longer going to be in service for our kids.
And that bus used to take which kids to school?
Students from around the Rosa Parks area brought them to Chief Joe and Ockley.
So actually, do you estimate that some of those children now won't go to Ockley Green?
I'm relatively sure that some children will not be able to attend, but I know that Antonio is looking into it, and that it's not, I think there's more work to be done.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Others, Matt?
I remember the board's conversation last year about transportation, so I was really surprised to hear the testimony today. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Real quick, not that you need another partner, because I know you've lined up a lot, but I think when you mentioned Lamprey, a light went on in my head. And the Columbia River Intertribal Fish Commission is an organization in town who works with the 5 Columbia River Treaty Tribes. There's a lamprey harvest, actually, that local tribal communities do every year. And by the way, one of the treaty tribes of the Columbia River is Nez Perce, and we know who is Nez Perce, Chief Joe, right? So I think it would be a nice symbiotic opportunity to bring in CRICFIC, and I could help get you in contact with them too. And they do a lot of education for young ones as well, so it could be a possibility. But thank you all for the presentation.
That would be great. Others, Bobby?
So I had 2 questions I wanted to ask. One is, we heard some parent testimony about some bullying situation, and it sounds like you guys are so involved in so many different things, and we're going to have some of those situations at times. Is this an area where our new ombudsman will be able to support parents in these situations and support principals and teachers? Is that one of the areas?
Yes, in terms of being the point of contact, not necessarily who will actually be the individual who solves the problem, but will figure out how to address the problem. But a single point of contact for parents with any kind of an issue.
Good.
Yes.
Because I'm
And
relieved that help is on the way for parents.
Well, and we were just notified a couple weeks ago that we will have restorative justice on at least our 4-8 campus, and just found out 2 days ago that we will finally get Playworks on our K-3 campus.
Oh,
so
that's
those
wonderful.
programs both
That'll
really
help.
support.
Yeah, those are
That will really
supportive.
help. So the other thing I wanted to ask about is, when I hear your presentation and the other presentations, and I hear so much about the art and the STEAM and all of these other programs, David Williams, if you're out there listening from our legislative policy group, I keep thinking that we need to be looking ahead at what the impact is going to be on our middle school kids in particular of the PE mandate that is coming. I don't know what you offer now to students in terms of physical education. I think there's a general sense that it's incredibly important, but the mandate is going to require, something like 50 to 60 minutes a day of PE, and I have to think that time is going to have to come from somewhere else, and it worries me. So any sense of how
Well,
we're going to deal with that as we
Yeah,
go?
so we have a full-time PE teacher on both campuses.
Mhm.
One for K3 and one for 4-8, in addition to dance on both campuses. So Susan Jordan and I just finished the PEAK grant, and our students have between 210 to 240 minutes of movement a week.
So dance would be considered part of the PE mandate.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah.
That's helpful. Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Some really
Matt?
curious things.
Go ahead.
I did hear a rumor that that you might be considering an 8th grade Constitution team.
Oh, yeah, we are. Actually, we are. And Jason Trombley, who is he heads the Constitution team for Lincoln. He's on our site council, so he's kind of our direct contact.
I'm not saying who
And
I
yeah,
heard the rumor from.
We are.
but-
We are actually, yes.
That's fantastic. I also want to mention I was really incredibly excited when last summer I heard about the conversion to the dance studio, and I thought, what an amazing magnet into Jefferson, into that program. And I'm curious, have you seen, I mean, students who are interested in dance or at that level have been doing it for a long time. Have you seen students check out Ockley Green because of that dance program?
We haven't seen new students coming
Mhm.
in, but we've seen students, existing 4-8 students especially, that are excited about going to Jefferson and want to be Jefferson dancers. So that's really,
fantastic.
yeah. Do you want
I want to say something about our. We had a carnival a couple weeks ago, and we have a great sun program that's the SEI runs for us. It's phenomenal, run by Koya Goodman. And they had the music blasting, and all of the kids were out there. I mean, it was just like a magnet, and they were all doing these dances that they had learned in dance class from Mr. Keller, and it was like a just there have been magical moments along the way, and that is a magical moment that I'm gonna carry with me. And my son's, he's going into 7th grade, and he's demo all the way. I mean, and that's what he wants. And my husband's like, well, what about a comprehensive high school? What about Roosevelt? And I mean, we've got 2 great options, but he's demo all the way.
Okay, Steve, did you have a question?
I had the same question that I asked earlier and that I'm planning to ask of probably every principal who shows up here in the next year. You've got all these things going. What are you taking off your teachers' plates?
Well, I guess our strategy is to integrate, and so to interconnect all of our programs is really our goal. Actually, Wednesday we are. I'm paying teachers to come Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for a curriculum camp, where teachers will be really looking at the math standards, K-8, and determining some high power standards. And aligning those with key lessons, and then we're looking for assessments, both interim and formative assessments. So teachers, I always put it out there, teachers volunteer, but they are always paid extended hours. Anytime I ask teachers to do something, I do pay them. I have priority money from the state to do that. I can use Title I money. I've used equity money from equity grants. I think the key to it is to integrate and interconnect your program. So it's not, a program on top of each other, but more an integration. And that's really how we want kids to see their education as well.
Okay. Others? Okay. I just want to say thank you very much to all of you for being here, to the presenters and principals from Boyce Elliott Humboldt, Chief Joe Ockley Green, and from King. Thank you very much for bringing all this information to us. Thank you, Richard. And thank you, Antonio. Do either of you have anything else you'd like to share with us tonight?
I just recognize the other principals that I...
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I will do it very briefly, but there is also a lot of good things that are happening in the other schools. So let me, Tina Acker and Melissa Schachner from Vernon, they're here, and they were just certified IB for the middle grade.
Excellent.
So this is the school that is certified KA IB.
Where's Tina?
We also know about the great work that is going at Fabian 3 to PhD.
Yep. there.
We also have Rebecca Torres from Beach, and we also have Robin Morrison from Woodlawn. And as you know, Woodlawn, we just got a SIG grant for $1.3 million.
Excellent.
So, and thank you for giving us the time to present about what's going on in the Jefferson cluster. I know we took a lot of your time, but I think it was worthwhile.
No, we appreciate it. Very, very, very good. Thank you so much. Would you need a break? She did, he did. Okay, so we'll move on to the next, there we go. Our next agenda item, our local option referral. Superintendent Smith, do you want to kick this off?
So I'm going to ask John Isaacs, who is our Chief of Communications and Public Affairs, and David Williams, who is a Director of Government Relations, to come on up and talk about our opportunity to put a local option before the voters.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Smith. Chair Knowles, members of the board, John Isaacs, Chief of Communications and Public Affairs, and we're very pleased to be here with you tonight to make our formal recommendation that the board refer the local option back to voters for this fall's election. This recommendation has been a long time in the works since the legislature acted in 2013 to make some changes that allow us to honor the full will of the voters who voted for communities like Portland, who voted to approve local funding for schools with either little or no knowledge that a portion of those funds actually do not go to the school district that they voted to fund, but are directed away to urban renewal. So first I'm going to turn it over to David Williams, our Director of Government Relations, who's going to talk about the legislation and the efforts that went into passing it, and then I'll talk more about the draft ballot title and explanation.
Thank you, board members. David Williams, Director of Government Relations. I won't belabor this, but this is a bit of a recap of a piece of legislation that we brought forth on your behalf in 2013. You should have in your packet a nice little handout that looks like this, that's got the bill number on it, House Bill 2632. So this was a bit of a quirk in state statute that came to our attention following a pretty broad sweeping urban renewal reform in 2007 that made sure that local option levies would not be diverted for new urban renewal districts, which was a positive change in 2007. But what it didn't capture was existing urban renewal districts and, of course, existing levies. Well, as you know, the city of Portland has quite a number of older pre-existing urban renewal districts that were siphoning a portion of our local option levy for that purposes. Of course, urban renewal siphons off as portion of all property taxes, but we felt that this was a policy choice the legislature could consider, that a voter-approved levy should obviously fund the things it's approved for. So we brought forth in 2013 a bill to fix that. So for all levies approved after the effective date of the act, which was January of 2013, no funds would be diverted for urban renewal, whether old or new urban renewal districts. Now, the upshot for us, of course, is our levy is diverting about $7.5 million to Portland's urban renewal districts, which is obviously not an insignificant amount. The bill passed, should the voters approve a new levy at the same rate we're at now, that would bring back to the district about $4.5 million. Obviously, it's hard to predict, and the difference between the 4.5 and 7.5 is lost due to compression, and we could probably spend the next 3 hours talking about what compression is and how it impacts property by property, what your taxes are and what you pay. But let it be known, obviously, the school side of the property tax ledger is in greater compression than the local government side, and therein is your loss of about $3 million. So in an attempt to be sort of fiscally responsible to the taxpayers and really respect their will, we brought that bill. I want to give a lot of credit to Representative Margaret Doherty and then Representative Jules Bailey, who co-sponsored the bill and really championed it in the legislature. Of course, it wasn't without Without its friends, the bill passed 59-0 in the House and 29-0 in the Senate, with all due intent that for all levies, and this doesn't affect just local option school levies, it affects all local option voter-approved levies. The intent is when the voters vote on something, the money should go to the things they vote on. It shouldn't be diverted for other purposes. So we're really happy about that. I also want to give credit to the city and then candidate Mayor Hales and now Mayor Hales, who all supported that idea, and we worked with the city to make sure that they could manage this in their process, as well with the county to make sure they actually do the math from the assessor side and actually divert the money for its intended purpose. So you have before you today is the upshot of that, the ability to send the levy back out to voters to then comply with House Bill 2632.
Are there any questions for David?
Questions? The thing that I've heard, David, from a lot of people is they want to know where's that money going to come from now that they had before?
Great question. So the beauty of the legislation, or the way it works, obviously, is it doesn't change any individual taxpayer's rate. Or I should say, it doesn't increase any individual taxpayer's rate. So in 2011, the voters approved a $1.99 per thousand of assessed value levy rate. What happened was the assessor would collect what would be that $1.99 for that homeowner, and some portion of that, based on the overall citywide urban renewal district, some portion of that would be diverted to urban renewal, the Portland Development Commission, and then the rest would be sent to the school district based on the local option levy. This just means that all of that amount comes to the school district. Of course, the quirk is in compression, and compression is a household by household formula that you deal with. So some voters will actually see a decrease in their tax rate if they're already under a certain amounts of compression on the school side. Again, that's the going from about $7.5 million that PDC gets from this now to where we would only be able to capture about $4.5 million when it comes over to the school side of the $5 and $10 ballot measure 5 limits.
So it's actually the Portland Development Commission that gets less money overall. Is that correct? Thank you.
Correct.
Matt?
So this option levy is funds primarily, I don't hear my mic on, but funds primarily teachers in classrooms, right?
There you go.
So is there a reason why, in your mind? What's the risk involved in going out, other than it not passing because we didn't deliver the right message or for whatever reason?
So I think great question. I think we'll put that on the park for just a moment, because I think that gets to the ballot title and looking at the November election and all of those sorts of things. Absolutely.
Can I ask one quick question before you start? Are there other current levies that would be impacted in a similar way, like the children's levy, anything like that? If they were to go out again, would they also get more money for the actual intended purpose?
Right. So both the children's levy and the metro levy have been renewed subsequent to the passage of this law, so they both are benefiting
So they're already
from
getting that
this
extra money
current redirection
for the intended
Absolutely.
purpose. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I don't know of other school districts or other local governments around the state beyond those two in the metro area, but obviously there are any number that would benefit from this.
Others? John?
Okay. So what you have in your packets is a draft ballot title and summary statement. This ballot title and summary statement has been approved by our attorneys at Miller Nash, and it was written collaboratively with members of the Citizens Budget Review Committee. That's important because the 2011 levy that was approved stated that independent citizen oversight would review expenditures to verify funds are used as approved by voters. That committee that was empowered to play that role is CBRC, and as you've heard in their report that they give to this board annually, their last two reports, they expressed some concerns with some previous language, so we worked with them to improve the language to satisfy the concerns they've raised with you. And I can say that actually about 80% of this is language that was provided to us by some members of the CBRC. So we have this here for your feedback, and if the board gives us positive feedback on this, next week we'll come with a resolution and a full measure summary along with it. I do want to say also that we have in your packet a memo that you've seen before, but last year when we did our survey with Davis Hibbett's Midgall Research, the annual survey we do of just the community's views of how Portland Public Schools is doing in educational priorities, we asked a question about this, and you can see that just under 80% of voters said they would approve of this. It's not every day you get to put a question to voters where you say, hey, would you like to approve the same thing you've already approved, but just have more of your money go to the source you intended it to go to? So this is it's a very popular concept, but the memo does also note that once you make the referral, that the board will need to work to make sure voters are aware that this is just a renewal of a levy that was already approved and isn't adding money on a levy on top of what they've already approved. So there will be a little bit of work that the board will need to do to make sure the community is aware of what the referral means. It is standard practice for the board to refer the new levy to replace the old levy before the old levy expires. So this is not an unprecedented referral in that sense either. And that's our presentation today, and we're happy to answer any more questions.
So I also just wanted to do one clarification, which is that if for some reason we went out in November and the measure failed, we would just simply have the current levy in place. And
Correct.
the Portland Development Commission would simply get all that money, right?
Right. The choice effectively is, do you want to keep paying what you're paying and have $7.5 million of that go to urban renewal, or do you want to replace it, pay the same amount, and have more of those funds go to fund teachers and educational programs in schools?
Right. So I wanted to do a little shout out to Sarah Carlin Ames, who used to be in our communications department, because I think she's the one that really initially kind of caught this and got the ball moving in terms of us going to the legislature, and then the legislature really doing the right thing and making sure that when voters pass money saying we want to pay for teachers, that the money actually goes to pay for teachers. So just a shout out to her real quick, and then to everyone else who kind of helped along the way, and especially to the legislature for making this needed change, which again, I don't think most of us even understood that the money wasn't going to exactly where it was supposed to be going to until she kind of called that to our attention. So I guess I look back at this past year when we were in teacher contract negotiations, and all of the discussion that we heard in the community for months and months and months, and it almost went to a strike, was the fact that we have in Oregon some of the highest class sizes in the nation, some of the heaviest teacher workloads, some of the shortest days in terms of school days that kids are in session. We had a complain about hours. I mean, to me, I look at this opportunity as just a golden opportunity for us to go back out to taxpayers and say, if we end up passing this and we have another $4.5 million going to Portland Public Schools, we're talking about potentially another 40 to 50 teachers that we can hire the following year. I mean, it's such exciting, incredible news. So it would also be helpful to, I think, share with folks how much our current levy total brings in, so people understand, David, how this is a big part of our budget. So if you could do that, please.
No, thank you, Director Regan, and thank you for calling out Ms. Ames. I did mean that she's on my list here too. And one other, I do a really big shout out as well to the Portland Association of Teachers, who we had our initial meetings with Representative Doherty at their offices in germinating this bill, and they really helped encourage the representative to be a chief ally in getting this drafted. And Sarah Ames actually found this little quirk by reading the annual report of the Multnomah County Tax Supervising and Conservation Commission. So lest you think that there's nothing useful in that report, I can assure you it's a pretty scintillating read. By all means, do read it. So put that in perspective, the 7.5 or the 4.5 million that we would retain by this, the current levy is collecting a roughly, and I know David Wind is here and can give us more precise numbers if need be, but around $58 million. So it's $4.5 million on that is certainly not insignificant, and I think, as Director Regan pointed out, 40 plus teachers or other folks in our buildings makes a huge difference to kids every day.
And we're talking about 20 to 22 million more dollars over the life of the 5-year levy. And you can see in the local option, the draft ballot title and summary statement, we have the estimated amounts based on the information we have now, but as David Wind would tell you, it's very hard to make these predictions exact given our very complicated tax system with compression, but these are the best estimates we can give that will be in this referral.
So that kind of leads to a question that I have. I'm a little concerned about putting the 40, a number for the teaching positions into this because of the difficulty with predictions, and we don't really know. I think that the language that says primarily fund teaching positions is adequate, and I would hate for us to be in a position where we are obligated to do 40 positions when we actually only get $3 million if that would happen. So that's my concern.
Okay.
On the other hand, it's helpful to put it into, to translate that into what the number means. So I hear what you're saying, though, too.
I think you can do that without putting it in, because this is the language we're going to be held to.
Right.
So if we if we only collect 3 million, we're
Right.
still going to have to do 40 teaching positions. So I'm just.
I think the intention here is to give voters a context for what 4 million is equivalent to, but we could change this language to be, to reflect that we're giving you context, but it's not a commitment to a specific number. In fact, what you're saying, Director Knowles, is that is consistent with the spirit of the recommendations from the Citizens Budget Review Committee, is to have language that provides the primary use of the funds, puts it in context, but doesn't make these super specific commitments that we just can't say 100% we're following through on.
Well, it also says in here we're going to reduce class sizes and support educational programs. So again, if we only have 3 million, not only are we not able to do the 40 teachers, we're not able to do the other things in this as well. So I just don't want to limit us in what we're able to do.
Okay, we can look at an edit to that.
Yeah, it's for the whole yeah, it's not saying that the additional.
It's the entire levy.
I got it.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks for the presentation. And I just want to reiterate a couple of things. One, I think that actually a number of our public did understand how much of this money we were not receiving, whether it's because of compression, whether they understand that or not. I think folks understand that there are things in place that divert money into places they didn't intend to. But I think people saw that, I think our community saw that as the cost of doing business, that they knew that they saw the amount that this levy was going to add to what we needed, and they were willing to do that. And so I'm looking forward. I feel like one of our biggest challenges, and you allude to it, was saying we are going to need to run some kind of campaign. The board's going to have to run some kind of campaign. Because I was taught that if it looks too good to be true, if it sounds too good to be true, it's probably not true. And to tell our voters to say you can pay the exact same thing that you are paying today, and 4 more million, 3.5 more million, 4.5 more million will go to the school district, 5 more, will go to the school district, and it won't change your rate significantly, meaning some people might, depending on which side of the ledger, because of compression, might see a reduction in what they pay. But it's not going to change the rate. I feel like people are going to be really cautious about believing that message. And so it's going to be really important that we get out ahead of that message. And at the same time, I feel like this solution is a great example of being proactive, that for so long our community has said it's so hard to work at the state level. What can we do? What can we do? We have given as much as we can. We are trying to support you in every way we can. Is there another option? And I just really appreciate Carlin Ames, staff, PAT working to find there are other options. There is a way to do this. And again, I think I hold firmly to the belief that this is something that our community would expect us to do, and is exactly the kind of advocacy and proactive action I think they're going to expect from us. So thanks for all the work that it's taken, and thanks to Representative Doherty and Bailey for their work on it as well.
So I am actually noticing for the first time, and I apologize, when you look at the language from our last levy, it actually said fund 600 teaching positions. And when I'm looking at this replacement, it actually, to me, should say primarily fund about 600 teaching positions, including the equivalent of 40 resulting from the result of urban renewal. So if this is a replacement, we're not talking about 40, we're talking about 640. And I'm not sure that this actually says that anymore, so we probably should look at that a little bit.
Okay.
I think that's a good point, because otherwise you might be confused into thinking it's an incremental piece that you're approving rather than a newly improved original.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would agree with that.
And I saw one typo I can share with you.
Steve?
The question itself, the 20-word limit question. What does redirect from urban renewal mean? It should be clear, I think. I'm not sure where you should start or how you actually word these. I'm sure there are experts in doing this. It's not me, but I know redirect from urban renewal says nothing to me. I have no idea what that is, and without some background. And shall district support schools programs? That doesn't have much. I mean, it's bad English. Maybe they're trying to push it down there.
All ballot
if I
titles are
change
bad
the whole
English.
thing around, it would be levy. I mean, if it was in decent English, I guess it'd be levy shall district levy $1.99 per thousand, assessed value for 5 years beginning 2015 to support schools and programs and redirect money from urban renewal. You're over 20 words, but that would at least
Which is a problem.
make it. But that would at least make sense. This redirect from urban renewal doesn't make any sense in the ballot title. This is the main thing. What I'm sure they have some figures for what percentage of people just read the question, and they're going to just read the question. And I don't know what this question says. Redirect from urban renewal to me doesn't say anything.
Yeah, I think.
Redirect. I
Director
mean,
Buell,
I'm just saying
No.
that's the first thing that caught my eye. The second thing that caught my eye was down in the road. Can we go back and redo the budget and make sure the 600
No.
here went, the 600 teachers or so or whatever went to that instead of the consultants and the other things that money got
That we just
frittered away on? I guess not.
Didn't the CBRC just do a report for us and acknowledge that we had in fact met all the requirements of this prior levy?
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And they worked on an accounting solution to that, yes. And this is sort of addressing making these improvements to the language based on their input is.
The other thing I think is, I'm not, the 40 teacher, that's the only thing in there that really told me what the levy was. The extra, what the urban renewal part was. That was what told me, oh yeah, okay, that urban renewal is that. The rest of it doesn't, I'm not sure. I mean, it's a complicated thing. I'm not sure it makes sense. Do you have to have the urban renewal thing up in the ballot title? In the question?
Well, I think Director Buell, I think it's a great question. I would just point out, there's a 20-word limit. 11 of those words are required by statute. That's everything starting with levy $1.99 to the end of that sentence is required by statute. The sentence after that, this measure renews current local option levies. Local option taxes is also required. It's not included in the 20-word limit, however. That's also another great example of the legislature acting to make things clear on the ballot, because previous required language had us saying that this measure may increase property taxes by more than 3%, even though it was a renewal. So we're left with 9 words to work with to try to describe to voters what this is paying for and the change versus the previous levy. So we're trying to get in both district operations as well as pulling money back from urban renewal in 9 words. It is
Do
certainly
you have to have the urban renewal in there?
The advice we received from Davis Hivitz Midgall was that within legally approved language, make sure you are directly communicating to voters that you are this is a replacement that will direct funds from urban renewal to schools. And so this was our best attempt to follow that advice within language that our legal counsel would approve.
Oh, how about you would save the same number with something like redirect urban renewal funds instead of the
If
from.
we added funds, we would need to, we just would have
No,
to
you take the
figure
from
out
out.
a word that we would.
You take the from out, and you'd have the exact same number. Redirect urban renewal funds makes sense to me. We're redirecting urban renewal funds as opposed to redirect from urban renewal.
Okay.
No charge for the, no consulting fee on that.
Thank you.
Good suggestion.
Other questions? Anyone? Okay. I guess when you guys are excused. and
Okay, so next week
we'll
we'll
be voting on this
we'll
on the
bring a
23rd.
resolution and the full ballot explanation, so.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to, I think, the presentation for the Roosevelt High School schematic design. At our June 2nd meeting, the board was excited to adopt the Franklin High School schematic design. And we are looking forward tonight to receive the Roosevelt High School schematic design. Superintendent Smith, would you like to introduce this item further?
I would. So Jim Owens, who's the Executive Director of the Office of School Modernization, and Michelle Platter, who's the Project Director, and Lauren, our architect, will be up here to do the presentation on Roosevelt schematic design. And just the one other thing I'd like to mention before they do this presentation is last week, as part of the Franklin schematic design resolution, we had a conversation about directing staff to go back and revisit the educational specifications, which two things will be happening this summer. One is that we'll be reviewing the ed specs for our K-8 schools, preparing to bring that to the board, so that one's been under development. But we'll also go back, given the conversations we've had as part of looking at the first couple of high schools, we'll go back and do the revisit the high school ed specs, and those will, with the idea that we'll bring them back to the board for review in September. And Matt Morton was the board member who was the liaison for the ed specs process, so he'll be the person, but others who are interested in participating in that process can indicate that to us as well. So just to say that.
Steve?
Weren't we also talking about borrowing money, and you were going to make
Yes.
a recommendation on that?
Yes, we have.
Is
And
that
this-
later or now?
Yeah, we'll bringing that back to you at the 23rd or 24th, whatever the next board meeting is. So we have gone back to investigate the possibility of doing another borrowing in order to enable us to do what we've been talking about. So yes, under review.
Thank you.
Jim Owens, take it away.
Thank you, Superintendent Smith, and good evening, board. We've reached another milestone in a very significant, very exciting project, the full modernization of Roosevelt High School. Pleased to be here tonight with our team to present the schematic design, which represents a very significant milestone on our schedule to complete the work. Last December, you may recall that staff presented and you approved the master plan for the Roosevelt High School site. Since that time, much has changed, and we are now ready to present a schematic design that staff is cautiously optimistic can be built within scope, budget, and schedule. I'd like to introduce the team that has been working very, very hard on this project. Seated to my right, Michelle Platter, OSM Project Director. Next to her, Lauren McConaughey is the principal with Bassetti Architects. They're going to walk us through the documents and provide some insight into the work. I'd also like to recognize that we have our amazing principal from Roosevelt here with us tonight, Charlene Williams behind me, and her vice principal, Greg Newman. We also have our builder team here with Lise Crutcher-Lewis, who have been working very closely with our team as well. So we have the whole gang here today, and after we complete our presentation, we'd like to be able to answer any questions or any concerns you may have. But before I do the handoff, we'd like to show a quick video which depicts some of the work that's been going on at Roosevelt over the last several months. Auto. We think this is going to work.
There's so much diversity here. We have over 29 countries represented, and we have such a diverse, dynamic, talented teaching staff and others who are really committed to the success of every child. So it's really exciting that we're going to have a new and welcoming 21st century design building that will inspire learning.
I think that connective tissue that we're working on within the school is what's really exciting to me. We're kind of healing some of this school that's been disparate and spread for a long time. And we are bringing it together and saying, okay, we're in this. We're going to know you well. We're going to work collaboratively toward a process. We're getting the teachers and administrators excited about their place again. Certainly the community, the parents are focused and giving us lots of feedback.
Yeah, I really like the whole Commons idea. That was like one of the first things that I advocated for at the DAG meetings. I was like, we need to have a Commons. Isn't our job as a community school to bring people from the community into the school? So I'm really excited about us having a Commons. I think it really does give Roosevelt like a central place, like a heart of the school.
Although we may have wanted a lot more space, what we needed was this space. And so as the project team, and Bassetti has been amazing at it, they go back to the drawing board time and time again, and we've probably made 20 renditions of this plan. and it's still evolving. But they're finding space. They're going in and they're hearing the community as far as like, we need STEM space, we need CTE space, and they're being very, very creative in how they put these spaces together. So they're definitely listening. They're definitely hearing us, and being a part of this group, being a part of this team has been absolutely amazing to see the process.
People will begin thinking outside of the box of how they can use their space, because they'll have clusters where they are cooperating in classrooms, but there'll also be various other learning spaces distributed throughout the building. We'll have a maker space, and wouldn't it be wonderful to see the language arts teacher taking students down to the maker space and making the curriculum come alive, working with teachers in that area. So I'm excited about inspiration.
By us not just building a new facility, but literally looking at the programs, we're telling our students, we're telling our families, we're telling our community that you're known, that you matter, and you have impact, and that we care about you.
And of course, I'm excited because we're going to have a brand new state-of-the-art theater, as well as Black Box and supporting space. And then of course having the Makers Lab right there, they're able to then get their hands on and actually make and do right there in the space, and not just talk about it in theory, but actually design it, build it, use it. Now we're getting somewhere.
Why do we do this? I think we just value kids. We recognize that our future is about our children, and you know, if I can take my gifts as a designer and apply them to something that helps our kids out, then it's a win-win as far as I'm concerned.
For all of us as voters and members of the community here in Portland, this is just an exciting thing to get the opportunity to rebuild our schools.
We have a sense of care, of community and support. Support from the people of St. John, support from the people of Portland, that they want to do something better for us as students.
You are worthy as a student, and you do matter, and you're not going to be the last, and we're going to start with you. And that to me is a huge step for our district, for our community, and all the process that's come back has said, you do matter, Roosevelt. You do matter, North Portland, and we got you, and we're going to show it, and you're #1 right now.
Everyone needs to be excited about what's happening on the Roosevelt campus. This is your school as much as it is ours, and the way that we're going to really continue to take Roosevelt to the next level is to rise together, and our facility is just going to be a crowning jewel for the St. John's community.
What that shows the kids and the ones that are going to be partaking in this is that all these people care about us. All these people are thinking about us. All these people are planning for us. And they all look differently. They all come from different places, and they're all doing this for us. That's an investment in my tomorrow. That's an investment in my future. So we're empowering our kids. We're empowering our community just simply by coming together. When we're divided, we're weak. But when we come together, our voice is strong and it's heard. So we're showing our kids that we care about you, and we're all coming together for you.
So I just have to thank everybody who was able to put that together for us, because it really marks the sentiment that we all feel in coming to this project and doing the work that we're doing. I'd like to thank the board for this opportunity to present the schematic design for the Roosevelt High School. I'd also like to thank the Roosevelt staff and community for their participation in this effort. I think we can all agree that while some of the conversations have been quite spirited, everyone who has participated has done so based on an intense desire that we all share to create powerful new learning opportunities for our students. We've received valuable feedback as a result of these discussions. Since the start of our schematic design process, both Bassetti Architects and Lease Crutcher Lewis, our CMGC contractor, have participated in the staff and community discussions. When the time came to begin reconciling the project to our budget, they had firsthand knowledge of both the needs of the program and the needs and desires of our stakeholders. While budget reconciliation is never an easy process, their teams brought considerable knowledge in the form of their own staff as well as outside consultants to provide thoughtful insight and a balanced end result. I know that many in the community as well as the Roosevelt administration stand with us in support of this plan. We're presenting this evening a plan that meets the conceptual goals of the long-range facilities plan. It meets the program goals of our educational specification, the project budget, and while we're still in progress on this next item, we're developing a schedule that will allow us to meet the final completion and occupancy of the fully modernized facility in September of 2017. I'll now turn the presentation over to Lauren McConaughey, Principal of Bassetti Architects.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting us. Roosevelt High School is on the rise. We have increased enrollment, increased graduation rates, increased test scores, decreased suspensions and expulsions. The restorations and additions that we're working on are about uniting the community, both the school and the neighborhood, personalizing education for all kids, as was said very well just a moment ago, and balancing some of these disparate program needs that are part of any big high school design. Some of the design parameters that we've been working with, you'll see here on the slide, we basically have an approved educational specification focusing on a core capacity of 1,700 with an immediate 1,350 student capacity. We are targeting 100% classroom usage. We, during the process, added 10 additional classrooms in order to ensure that we have alignment with the Roosevelt High School master schedule. And we've had, as Michelle just said, very spirited discussion around career and technology education, trying to find that balance between the community input as well as the needs and directions of the administrative team at Roosevelt. We have had intense community engagement and really wonderful feedback from folks all over the neighborhood, the school, and as well as teachers, district staff, as well, of course, as the design advisory group. I was counting up numbers. We have had over 70 meetings during the master planning phase and over 100 meetings in the schematic design phase, listening, talking, sharing, getting good feedback. These guiding principles really serve as the consolidation of long-range goals by the district, a vision by the district. They range from being focused on learning for every child to respecting the history and context of the beautiful place that we're fortunate to work on. During the process of that engagement, we've had great community priorities emerge and change some of the things that we thought about. Community access has been hugely important, and I'll show a slide in just a moment talking about the after-hours use, the weekend use, as well as just the day-to-day use of the Roosevelt campus. Security, of course, is unfortunately we're all way too aware of, is a huge issue and has been made very clear throughout the design process. The notion of central gathering, both indoor and outdoor, is another one of these key components that just keeps arising as we talk to folks about a place for kids, a place for the community to come together. It's one of the challenges of the current Roosevelt plan, which is really quite separated and disparate. And as I touched on a moment ago, the career and technical education, both the dedicated spaces as well as the ancillary or support spaces, have been hugely important in terms of the community expressing their priorities. This is a slide that overviews some of these career and technical education programs. We started out with roughly 6,000 square feet in the program. We're currently around 7,400 square feet dedicated to career technical education. And that you'll see here in bold. We have the STEM Maker Lab 1 is what we're calling it, and some of the ancillary spaces that support that are 6 science classrooms, numerous math classrooms. We also have a STEM Makers Lab 2 is what we're calling it, and this is directly associated with the performing and the visual arts. So you'll see there adjacent spaces include 3D arts classroom, black box theater. In addition, there's a wonderful writing program that has become part of the core of what Roosevelt is offering its students. We're looking at dedicated space for writing and publishing, as well as adjacent journalism classrooms. And a social justice lab is also another very important aspect of what we've heard about as we've worked with the Roosevelt community to ensure that kids are understanding how they fit within the bigger cultural milieu. Last, because of the wonderful community wraparound spaces, there's discussion about looking at career pathways through the health and social services that are being provided at the school, though at present those are nascent and there aren't specific spaces for that. I'd like to now jump into the plans of Roosevelt, a little faded in this one, but hopefully we can keep up with it. Basically, North is up in all of these. The main entry to the school will always be from the south lawn at the south edge or bottom edge of the slide. These are just a quick overview of some of the structures at Roosevelt. The blue represents the original academic building as well as the 1930 auditorium off to the east side of the campus. The red dashed lines represent structures that will be removed through the course of construction, including the cafeteria and media center to the east and west near the front lawn, the gymnasium building and boiler room immediately behind the blue original buildings, and lastly the auto shop at the northeast corner. One thing that I want to mention, though, is that Roosevelt will be fully occupied and phased throughout its construction, as you well know. So all of these buildings will be supporting the swing space, the phasing, the movement of students in a safe and orderly way around the campus so that we're maintaining emergency access, fire egress, and critical things about kids' safety, as well as keeping contractor and student body separated throughout a multi-phase construction process. Some of the primary interior spaces organizing the new Roosevelt include, and again, you'll see the main entry under the tower here at the south. There is a central commons. We call it a distributed commons because it's really about linking this school together and making sure there are a wide variety of social spaces, both large and small, supporting academic needs as well as social needs. New gymnasiums off to the west here, and I'll touch on those a little more in a minute. A new theater at the northeast corner of the site. The media center will be located in the old auditorium, and then around a community commons, the community health service and social services, as well as a teen parenting program as primary interior spaces. Some of the new and I think very exciting exterior gathering spaces begins with revitalization of the South Lawn. It's long been a primary space at Roosevelt High School. As I touched on a moment ago, a new community plaza encompassing student gardens, community gathering space, as well as a play yard for the child care center. A new performing arts plaza on the eastern edge, adjoining the theater, also opening into a gallery, again showing off the wonderful work that undoubtedly will be coming from the art students at Roosevelt. A secure courtyard at the center, an indoor-outdoor space opening off the student commons, very almost cloistered in the kind of character of how it fits into the building. And lastly, kind of a late arrival, but I think a very exciting space is the Athletics Plaza. This is it's doing double duty as a service drive, fire access, those kinds of things. But what it really is doing is connecting the gym and the entry foyer for the gym to the whole football field track area. What we're trying to do is create a shared indoor-outdoor access for concessions, for toileting. So we're trying to be very efficient and as well as sort of bring people together on big game days. Regularly, we touch on future additions. We've identified the northeast corner of the site as a location where we would anticipate a future addition. And I have written down here the specific spaces that I've forgotten. 8 classrooms, 2 labs, and some of the ancillary support spaces, teacher planning, toileting, things of that nature. What we're trying to really do is make sure that as we enhance the entry and the front presence of Roosevelt, that we have room behind the building for some of these additions to maintain that historic presence within the community. Another one of the key issues that came out through the community feedback was how do we access our building after hours as a community, as a neighborhood, as kids. Some of the spaces that are critical and have been discussed at great length include the weight aerobics room on the west end, the new gymnasium, which already gets the old gymnasium gets a great deal of use. I'm sure the new one will as well. STEM Makers Lab adjacent to the theater as a community shop, if you will. And then, of course, some of the health clinic, social services, as well as a dedicated family room for alumni and the community in the Roosevelt area. Now I'd like to jump into the specific floor plans. This is a little blown up version of the school plans that you've been just looking at. As I'm sure you recall, Roosevelt slopes from south to north. So when we talk about a ground floor plan, it's actually sort of the back of the school, and it's a ground floor lower than where the main entry is, which would be right here under the tower. So at that ground floor, you can see a new gymnasium. This is actually a main gym with capacity to seat the entire student body at an assembly or some of those kinds of gatherings, as well as an auxiliary gym. We heard very clearly from some of the advocates for sports and as well as physical education, we needed to have the capacity for 2 games at one time. In addition, this is that new entry lobby that I touched on with shared concessions and toileting for both field and the main gym. Also on this floor level is the lower level of the commons here in purple, that again is that distributed commons uniting the disparate functions of the school. A new 500-seat capacity theater, as well as on the ground floor level some of the arts programs that you see beneath the existing old auditorium. I'm not going to go into great length. I know many of you have seen this, and it's very similar to what we showed at the master plan, and I'm really trying to touch on the changes that have occurred rather than go through every space in the school. Up on the first floor plan, you'll see aerobics and weights room at the west end above locker rooms, again, very accessible to the community for after-hours use. The media center or library will be occupying the body or the great room of the old auditorium, filled with great light. We're looking at restoring the proscenium arch and making sure that historic character is maintained. Also here, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned the main entry beneath the tower with the light blue is primarily administrative space here on the first floor, welcoming the community, making sure there's good supervision as people come in and out of the school. On the second floor is really dedicated to learning communities. Many of these, all of these within the school are broken into an integrated model where we're looking at including science, English, math, history kinds of integration of courses around a teacher planning area and a breakout learning space. Last, I wanted to just touch on some of the images of the school. This from the southeast corner. What's interesting about this, it's actually a reductive image. By removing some of the buildings in front of Roosevelt now, we are now able to sort of restore that wonderful presence of this neo-colonial building. You can see the main entry here, and of course, what is now actually a fairly buried auditorium entry behind the old cafeteria will reemerge as a primary streetscape. From the southwest, you see the historic building to the right and the new additions. What we're looking at is really trying to create additions that are at the same scale as the old building, have similar fenestration, relationships, and context to the old building, but trying to make them much more open and transparent and of the 21st century. We have heard clearly from the community that they don't want to replicate these historic buildings, but look forward and create spaces that are about kids and looking into the future. Swinging around to the east side of the building, you see the new theater as the blank box, if you will, with this very glassy, transparent entry leading into the gallery and entry foyer for the theater space. And last, back in the student courtyard, looking basically on axes with the old tower peeking out above the commons. Here's that very transparent space that opens indoor, outdoor. It will be a gated space so kids can be very safe and secure in all kinds of weather in this lovely new courtyard. So that's a very fast overview of the design, and I know Michelle was going to wrap it up.
Thank you, Lauren. What we wanted to do is just let you know, once we do receive the schematic design approval, our next steps will be to move heavily into the design development process. And what that means is that we're going to be working with the building users on specific spatial needs for the different spaces. We're going to be talking about construction phasing, and we'll be working with both staff and the community on how that phasing works so that people understand where the vehicular access is, how students will be protected, how we're going to maintain our safety, and how students are going to move through the school as the different phases of the project are developed. We'll have separate individual occupancies through the next 2 years of construction. So we have to put that together, and we have to make sure that everybody is on board with that process. The other thing we'll be doing is further refinement of the design, including the building exteriors, the mechanical systems, the interior finishes, furnishings, and fixtures. Once design development is complete, and we anticipate that happening around November of this year, we'll be moving into construction documents, and that's when we really put the final drawings together, plans and specifications, so that the contractors are able to build what we have designed. So while design development really still works on a design process, once you get into construction documents, you're no longer designing, you are just drawing to make sure that it can be built appropriately. We anticipate completing that work and getting permits so that we can start construction in spring of 2015. And we will be doing phased occupancies, which people will know about once we get to that stage. But we do still anticipate construction completion. We're cautiously optimistic that we can get there by spring of 2017, and that we will still maintain our occupancy of fall 2017. Now we'll open it up to questions. Thank you.
Questions from board members? Steve? Thank you very much. That was a great presentation, you guys. The drawings are fabulous. Very
Bobby
exciting.
wanted to go first.
Go ahead.
You were
Well,
popping
that's
out there,
okay.
Bobby. Okay, I want to just get all this stuff straight in my head, if I could, please. I have 7 things. You talk about adding 10 classrooms. That was the, and then are we talking about another 10 classrooms?
What we've done, early in our process, we looked to how education was being taught in the Roosevelt High School and recognized that as a part of the existing master schedule that they were using, additional classrooms were going to be necessary. So in our process, we added 10 classrooms. There's been additional criteria that's been addressed, and as we look at that additional criteria, to meet that requirement, we needed another 3 classrooms, and I believe we're talking about that now in terms of what might be added to Roosevelt High School.
So we added the 10 that they were talking about as the 10. As we went along, we're 10 short. Everybody said we're 10 short. The change that took place over a couple years. And we added those. I thought we were talking still with the superintendent about adding 10 classrooms, and we needed 33 million or something last time we talked about that. Could maybe somebody straighten that out?
That was
for me?
Franklin. That was at Franklin.
But I thought we were totaling down. It's
Two
different.
different processes at each one of the sites. And part of what Roosevelt did as they were going is they were working to, like both built projects went through a different process. And so what Roosevelt did as they were going through was trying to match the master schedule to the design in terms of how program was currently being offered. So they did some of the correction that where we are now trying to reflect with additional criteria. So the adjustment that would be made at Roosevelt would be 3 classrooms that let us meet the additional criteria.
Was that the million something they're talking about in here?
Yes.
It,
Additional
we're coming back to you with the additional criteria. So the 10 is already
Well, there was
in.
$1 million that they talked about adding on in the material that you gave me.
Yeah.
What was that $1 million about?
So it is an additional $2 million for additional criteria for Roosevelt, and it was for the additional 3 classrooms that would allow it to accommodate the criteria that we had described to you previously in terms of the shared use of classrooms and the constraints in terms of no more than teachers being in 2 classrooms per day, that criteria. That's still needed to bring Roosevelt up to that full amount. However, based on what you're seeing tonight, this actually accommodates 1,350 students, which has been our target enrollment for Roosevelt.
But wait, but the million that Steve's talking about in the resolution was a million of the 10 million.
Sorry.
Right? So look at the resolution G.
So in your resolution, the $1,045,000 is the amount allocated from the program reserve, board reserve, if you will.
That you already did.
For the master plan work that you saw back in December. So that brings Roosevelt up to what the master plan approval was.
So where we are right now is if we add 3 more classrooms, then we will meet the 1,350 criteria. And that cost of those 3 more classrooms beyond this $1,071,000 is $2 million?
$2 million, correct.
Okay. All right, second question.
But you're not addressing that in this
we're not.
resolution.
But
So,
we're not, but
no.
that's the $3 million is gonna be what we're talking about
That's- that
next
would be
week.
exactly.
$2 million.
$2 million.
This
The
resolution.
3 classrooms, I meant.
This resolution brings
Okay.
Roosevelt High School to the master plan criteria that was approved in December.
And minus the, yes, but we still want to put in 3 more classrooms, I think. All right. The CTE, 7,500,
Se-
I think
7,400.
okay, and it's not together?
It is not contiguous space. It's 2 different programs.
And auxiliary gym has seating in it of
Yes,
some
it does.
sort?
Yes, it does.
Good going on that. The early childhood, which you referred to now as the teen parenting,
Yes.
how much space is that?
I
At
don't.
Franklin, it was 2,100.
Yeah, it's 2,100 square feet.
Does that include the preschool?
Yes. Well,
The outsourced
It-
preschool that have nothing to do with the teen parents at Roosevelt?
we don't really have a preschool that is separate. We have the Teen Parenting Center, which has room for infants and toddlers, but it's not a preschool program.
So 2,100 square feet is necessary for the toddlers and the infants?
Yes.
Seems like a lot of, it's 2.5 classrooms. That's how much it takes for toddlers and infants. So how come at Franklin then, do they have 2,100 square feet and they talked about putting in a preschool on top of the infants and toddlers?
I couldn't speak to
They were
Franklin,
looking
I'm
at
sorry.
doing the CTE program around it.
And they were looking at doing the CTE program around it. So if they're thinking of putting in a preschool at Franklin and they got on top of the toddlers and infants, and they got 2,100 square feet, then why at Roosevelt would we need 2,100 square feet to do the toddlers and infants? Are the infants and toddlers bigger at Roosevelt than at Franklin or something? I mean, that does not make sense to me in any shape, sense, or form.
Yeah, the programs are actually very similar, and the space that is allocated for Franklin and Roosevelt is very, very similar. We would have to get back to you regarding additional questions over how the program would be set up. I think we had mentioned previously that staff's going to be evaluating the teen parenting concept as far as our EdSpec process, and we haven't completed that evaluation yet.
So, and no offense, Mr. Owens, but the answer is you really can't answer that question right now. We could get an answer later or something?
Well, I
Okay.
think it's difficult to answer from the perspective of what's happening at Franklin. Personally, as the project director for Roosevelt, I know what we're doing for Roosevelt, and we've met with the administrators of the program for the Teen Parenting Center and made sure that we were fulfilling their needs and requirements, because there is already a Teen Parenting Center at Roosevelt, and we're continuing that program.
How big is the one now?
It is virtually the same size. What we made.
2,100?
Yeah, we were looking at not reducing the space that they have.
So it doesn't, the 2,100 with both, it doesn't compute? What you're saying computes, And what they said computes, but if you put them together, they don't compute.
I think what we'd have to look at is how many students are using the spaces and what the capacities are within those spaces, and that's information that we can gather.
So there's more teen parents at Roosevelt than there would be at Franklin?
I couldn't say specifically because I don't know what they have at Franklin,
anybody know that?
but we can look at that.
So if you're looking for a comparison between the two, why don't you let us bring that back to you?
Okay.
Because these guys are speaking specifically to Roosevelt,
Yeah,
and you're looking
I
for
know,
a
and I'm
comparison.
looking for a
We'll
comparison,
get you
right?
the
It's not a
information.
fair question.
Yeah, but we'll get you
at
the
all.
comparison of
But
the
it is a
two.
good question,
Yeah.
even if it's not fair.
So Steve,
we're tearing down the auto shop,
Yes, we are.
and the reason that we're tearing down the auto shop instead of having auto shop at Roosevelt is?
It is not a seismically improved building, and the cost of improving it would be significant. It doesn't have a setup that would be designed in the way that you would do auto shop if you were doing it in today's environment. And so it made sense to demolish that building in favor of supporting other programs and newer technologies that are going to be incorporated into the newer design.
I would also add it's separate from the campus, and part of the whole security overlay of the design has been to bring all of the buildings together so that kids don't have to walk indoor, outdoor.
But
as
it's
they-
mostly
as
her
they
answer,
move around.
right?
Yes, but I'm also
Okay,
giving
yeah, I
others-
appreciate you adding in there. And the last question I have, pretty nice, huh? Only 7. The breakout learning space, I don't know what that, I taught 40 years, I don't know what a breakout learning space is. Can we get a definition of that? I mean, how would a teacher use a breakout learning space? I mean, you send the kids outside the door, if you're shutting the door, then they're out there by themselves, or what, I mean, what are we talking about?
Sure, I can speak to that.
Yeah.
The
Thank
breakout spaces are, actually, they probably weren't around in the last 20, 30 years of teaching. What we're seeing is there's a lot of individual, small group, and mentoring kind of learning that's occurring within our schools right now. And sometimes that small group might be disruptive to an ongoing class, but working outside within earshot and eyeshot of what's going on in the class allows them to focus on a presentation or moving ahead or catching up. I know when I do a lot of mentoring in schools, I'm often assigned to some of these spaces as someone coming in to help a student with their reading or with their math or whatever I might be working on. So it's breakout learning space in terms of some kid who might be more advanced or maybe a little slower in the coursework. It is in our digital age, a number of kids are finding very individual pathways toward learning that they can work in proximity to their general class, but not necessarily part of the ongoing direct instruction.
Thank you.
Other questions? Bobby?
So first of all, I think the design is beautiful as you've laid it out, and it's going to be really exciting to see the front of the school in particular when you take off the other two sides, how it's going to just open up that whole campus. It's going to be pretty spectacular, I think. So the one thing I would say is that when you, just for future, especially as we look at the grant design process, I think one of the things that's been hard in this particular process, being a member of the design advisory group, has been the whole discussion around CTE. And so I think that Bisetti did a really good job of trying to listen to the community voices who were there. What was missing from the discussion was actual CTE teachers who were advocating for their space. And so what we saw was we saw the art teachers advocating for their spaces and the sports folks advocating for their spaces. And what we didn't really have was the CTE folks advocating for their spaces, at least the CTE teacher voice. And it's not really a voice we have in the district too much yet. But I think in the future, as we go to the next design, what we probably need to do is maybe even contract or bring in a couple of CTE teachers to really be that advocate for students and for that space. So I guess I would kind of put that on the agenda for lessons learned in what we need to do, because what we ended up having was a lot of community folks who were coming in and trying to advocate, and that was really helpful. But it's not the same as having the teacher who can kind of really talk about, the actual students in the room and what you need and why you need and the adjacencies and all of that part. So I want to do a shout out to our community members who tried to fill in that role for us, but I would also ask that as we go forward, we make sure that that voice is in the discussion from the start, and it really be a teacher voice would be really helpful. But I think you did a great job as you went along. You kind of shifted the spaces around, and you tried to, you know, add some space here and a little bit less here, and do whatever adjacencies you could. So I think it's, and one of the other things, Steve, I would mention is, I think one of the things that was different about this design is that Roosevelt early on decided they wanted more classrooms. And when you make that decision, you are going to put pressure on other more common areas or other spaces. And so that was something that I think was really different than the Franklin decision, which was more to kind of keep the program and, at some point, the space is all the same, but you've got to kind of figure out where your pressure points are. But Roosevelt early on decided the value was on more classroom spaces rather than some of the other areas. I think that's the way I would interpret it as I look at kind of both of them.
We spend $2 million on Roosevelt and $10 million more on Franklin once we got to the design spec ends.
Well, I
You
think
think
there's
that's-
more
I mean,
to
do you
it.
think
Yeah,
that's a
I
way
think
to
there's
look at
more
it? I
to
don't know.
it
Is that
than
a way to
that
look at it?
in terms of the actual spaces and, yeah.
They'll be coming back with it.
Yeah, they'll be coming back
So
with that.
They don't need to go into any more.
Right. And then I just wanted to do a general statement in terms of the teen centers and I know you had mentioned that you may come back in terms of a discussion about borrowing money. One of the things I think in the Roosevelt community, that having the teen center and the child care was a pretty high value right from the start, and part of that is probably because they currently have one also. Whereas I think at Franklin that was a little bit of a different discussion, and it was more of a given that we had to have it and not really the passion around it. I guess what I worry about, Superintendent, is if you come back to us talking about borrowing money without having opened up the ed specs and figuring out what we do, it seems like we're not going to be having a full discussion. So I worry about us having the discussion about borrowing money before we've actually opened up the ed specs and looked at what we need in terms of the teen centers, which I think is why we passed an amendment last week to say, take a look at that. So I'm concerned about the timing. So just want to say that. So anyway, congratulations to the Roosevelt team. I think there's been some angst in the community, especially around the CTE space. I think it's time to move forward and acknowledge and thank those folks, and know that in the future that's a place that we need to just kind of make a note to ourselves to do it a little differently. So, thank you.
Matt?
Just a couple of quick comments. I want to mention, I mean, based on the resolution that was presented to us, I would be voting yes on this. But I want to say, it truly, this look at it is an inspiring design. Congratulations on that. It does not surprise me, though, with the input I'm certain that was gathered from the community around Roosevelt and the staff and the students and the families, and that really, like I said, doesn't surprise me. But looking at the renderings, looking at the plan and the strategy that went behind that, the idea that there's this draw for the community to come in a community space, it's really phenomenal. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see it happen, and I'm also really excited, and I remember one of the reasons among many that Roosevelt was one of the 3 high schools selected was the school size as it is right now and the ability to keep students there while this transformation takes place. And that being a cost savings and for a number of different reasons, but I'm also really excited as a possibility is when construction starts happening, how do we incorporate that into the educational opportunities for the students who are there and the families who are there to really be engaged. So I would encourage you to continue to think about that as you move forward with this. But excellent job, and congratulations to the staff who I know played a big role in this at Roosevelt. So thank you.
Others? Edward?
I would just like to say congratulations. I think Director Morton stole most of my comments, but I mean, really, this is a beautiful, beautiful campus. You should be really proud of what you've done, and I really like how it looks. And I, like Director Morton said, I think the learning opportunities for students and their families here will be incredible, using it as the transition site as well. And I'm really excited by the designs, how they truly look like they were designed by the community. I can really see their, ideals reflected within the design. So I'm really pleased, and I'm looking forward to how it develops. So thank you. Thank you.
Greg?
I just also want to say thanks for that video ahead of time. What I really appreciated is, I remember when we were developing the bond, should we go for $1.10 per thousand? Like, how do we land on this? Where do we find ourselves? And what was really heartening to hear in that video is people to say, we recognize this is an investment in us. This is saying to us in our community that we believe in you and we are rising. And so it was just really touching for me to hear that, and that's exactly what this is. This is an investment in North Portland. We know our students and our families deserve the best of the facilities, and thank you for all the hard work. You characterize the input as intense and lots of dialogue, and I know that that's been really true, and I appreciate your willingness to continue to be open to figure out how do we build this best school, because it is an investment in our community. So thank you, and I can't wait to see this take shape. And I also hear staff cautiously saying we are cautiously optimistic that we can deliver this on time. So I just want to point out there's a caution there that we are not positive we can deliver this on time at this point as we've gone through this process. But I have faith that if it's possible, we will do it. And I appreciate your commitment to still getting it on time and on budget. Thank you.
Ruth?
Ditto to everything that's been said. I am absolutely thrilled. It is just fantastic. So I couldn't be more happy, and just thank you so much for all your hard work. I know it's been a long, hard process, and there's lots more work to come. And that we've played our own role in kind of creating some of those delays and uncertainties. So now's the time for us, as Bobby said, to move forward and just continue to support this. And it's absolutely thrilling. So thank you so much.
Tom?
Thank you. Likewise, and I'll shout out to this been mentioned, but all the community input, and for those who have felt really passionate about it, and maybe this design isn't exactly how they want it, but there's no question about that input has made us a better district, has informed us how we're going to go forward from a teaching standpoint. So I really appreciate the input, the community input that has happened, and your all's flexibility to incorporate as much as you could. So thank you.
My turn. So I also want to, of course, say thank you and how excited I am for this. And I'm just kind of curious. I know that this was a really intense process, as everybody said. Lauren, how long have you been an architect?
30-some years.
Yeah. And how many schools have you designed?
Oh, you're asking me tough questions. Maybe 50 or 60.
Okay. I just want to thank you, and I feel that we as a district are very fortunate to have someone with your skill working with us. And so thank you very much to you and to everybody else who's been on the team. And so we're really looking forward to seeing what this looks like. And also to the staff up here. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Okay, the board will be voting on a resolution around Roosevelt schematic design at our meeting on June 23rd. So for our last agenda item tonight, I think, yes, our last agenda item, we'll be talking about the corrective action plan, and I believe Amanda, our senior advisor to the superintendent, is going to provide that report for us. Do you want anything else?
Just the
We had a complaint that was filed with ODE by the Parents Coalition, and that Amanda Whalen will be presenting our corrective action plan to the board.
June. Yep, the one above it.
Maybe.
All right, thank you, Board of Directors. So I just want to give you a brief update over the corrective action plan that we've presented to you, that we have sent a draft already to the Oregon Department of Education. This is coming to you now for approval. So as part of the finding by Deputy Director Saxton that we received back in March, it was found that our high school course requirements did not meet the 130 course hour requirement. So I'm doing a brief overview. Our corrective action plan for that is that we've already submitted a revised schedule to the Oregon Department of Education where high school courses are all over 130 hours, and you had the schedule included in your packet, and that was also sent to the Oregon Department of Education. The second finding was that our complaint policy was out of compliance, and this was primarily around the fact that there are certain complaints that can be appealed to the state. Our complaint policy does not make that clear. So our corrective action is that we have now hired an ombudsman to assist families and schools with complaints, and that we are also revising our complaint policy, and we'll be bringing a draft of that to the Board of Education in July. As part of his order, Deputy Director Saxton also required that we submit to a follow-up audit to ensure implementation with the corrective action plan, and that audit must be developed and agreed upon in collaboration with the Parents Coalition, and that is due to the Oregon Department of Education by August 15th of 2014. So when we're thinking about our audit and we're looking at the future planning around it, what we look back to is the high school strategic framework that was part of our May 2013 agreement with the Parents Coalition. And I've identified here for you a couple of specific questions that we would be looking at. The first is forecasting, which is how do we continue to improve our forecasting process? As you know, this year, for the first time, what we had was students who were forecasting for 8 classes, and in order to opt out of forecasting for 8 classes, they needed parent and guardian signatures in order to do that. Also, communication. How do we better communicate with families about preparation for college and career when they are determining courses and at the end of semesters? Timing questions. How do we sequence forecasting and staffing processes? And finally, our staffing formula. Do we continue to use a ratio for determining FTE? Additionally, the agreement said that we would continue to support development of effective study halls. So again, here's the timeline. The board votes on the corrective action plan on June 23rd. Once it's approved, PPS staff will collaborate with the Parents Coalition on the audit process. We'll bring you a revised complaint policy in July, and our audit process is due to OD on August 15th. So, yep.
Board members have any questions? Steve?
What do they define as an effective study hall?
So one of the questions has been sort of the supervision of study halls, how academic are study halls. One of the questions previously had been, is attendance taken in study halls? So really looking at what we're doing around the supervision and the work that happens. Also, another thing that we've used in our study halls this year is really how do we support online learning? Are there other opportunities such as that can be taking place in schools?
Was that their language or ours, effective study halls?
Theirs. It's part of the
okay. Did they send us a list?
And by they, do you mean Oregon Department of Education?
Yes.
No. So this is an agreement with the Parents Coalition from May of 2013.
All right. The on the ombuds person?
Yes.
Now, is that ombuds person going to go out into the schools with children who are having difficulty and work with the school per se? Is that one of the things that we're looking at for the ombuds person? And if it looks like we're not, why are we not looking at that? I mean, one of the major problems that we've seen over and over again, and I get them all the time. I've told you guys that. I always have people write me, which is fine. I like to get them. But one of the major problem is, how are they responding with my child? And you can't do that down here in the BESC office. You got to actually go out to the school and sit down with the people who are responding negatively with the child and the parent and work that problem through. But we're not thinking in those terms from the ombudsperson?
So John Isaacs can come and tell me if I'm wrong. I mean, our thinking with the ombudsperson is that's a point of contact within the district where parents can go. Our policy and our procedures have always been that we try and resolve issues in schools like at the lowest level possible. So it's always been that regional administrators or whomever are working with teachers and principals in order to resolve conflicts that occur in the schools.
Or are we retraining so we've had so many. Are we doing retraining of our principals and our regional administrators on how to work through these types of problems?
So once we have a revised complaint policy and the procedures around that, we will be providing support to principals and regional administrators, and that's going to be part of the role of the ombudsperson.
And who's going to support the parent in the complaint process?
So the ombudsperson will be the point of contact.
The point of contact, but no, there won't really be any real support for the parent. There's still the parent walking out into that school and trying to advocate for their child against a principal and or maybe regional administrator who are highly educated and highly skilled in all this stuff, who have all the information themselves together. And it's like shooting ducks in a pond, in a barrel. You don't have a prayer if you're a parent going out into the school against that stuff. Why aren't we adding supports for those parents to work through the problems with their children?
So,
is that something we could look at maybe?
I'm going to say, when we're saying it's the point of contact, it may be that person we have a person who actually is an advocate for special education parents. We have a number of people in our
family engagement
department that act as individual advocates for parents. But the ombudsperson will be the point of contact for anybody with a complaint, who then may figure out who would be an appropriate support person to work with a particular family, and it could be the ombudsperson themselves. It could be that they get one of these other support people who become the advocate in that situation. These will be such
So the ombudsperson is supposed to be the advocate for the child and the parent and working through the problem.
But they're the one point of contact. They may be the person that sees something all the way through, or they may
we'll have specific information about where they can farm that out. So they might say, Dr. Jones on our staff is going to go out and work with this child and this parent. That would be new, right? To a certain degree, where we have a person who actually says, you're the person that goes out and works with this child and this parent, and you work this problem through. That's new. We don't have that now, where we have a person that points and says, that's your job.
We don't have the ombudsperson, so
right.
it's a new position, correct.
So the ombudsperson, that will be part of their job to say, you're the one who's advocating for this parent and this child out in this school with this problem.
And they'll tackle each problem in whatever way that is specific and appropriate to that problem. They're going to get a whole lot of different kinds of issues that come up, and they will work to figure out what resources are needed to address that problem, or to support a family, or to support a student, whatever the nature of the problem is. So the answer is yes. Yes.
My concern is that the ombudsperson feels something that I don't feel much in this district, which is that you can actually take an advocacy position for a teacher, which we're not talking about that because that's contractual, but for a teacher or a parent or a child and end up being fine. I don't see where we're able to do that. Now, we just kind of seem to back up whatever the administrative staff member says, and that's kind of the way that it seems to go over and over again. It's what got us in this position in the first place. So what I'd love to see personally is how do we get that ombudsperson the independence where he can go out or she can go out, whomever it is, and say to the regional administrator, I'm sorry, buddy, but you're screwing up here. This is how we should be doing it. Do we have a way that we're going to guarantee that type of independence? So, because we don't have that within the school district now. We don't have, I'm sorry, we don't have that. Be nice if we did, but I mean, maybe you can get back to me later if you want, and we can talk about it if you'd like. I'd be more than happy to do that. I have one more question too. So, you want to do that later, or you want to? What do you think?
It's a brand new position, and we're creating the position right now.
Okay, well, there's
so
my input on
I
it.
hear your
All right,
input.
and the
Can I just add something?
sure, okay by me.
Bobby?
Well, my sense is that the ombudsman is going to be heavily involved, I hope, in the rewrite of our complaint policy, and that part of what their job will be is to kind of help a parent understand their rights and the process and the procedures and where you go and how you go and who you go to next. So I think there is that piece that's going to be a really important piece, and I assume that's the reason that we are going to be rewriting our complaint policy. So,
But there's the other piece, Bobby, which
No,
is
there is
when you
the
get
other-
out to the school, and that's an unfair system where you can't, it's an unfair system because the school district has all the power and they have all the information and all the things at the school level. And as those processes work through, what happens, in my opinion, is that you've got it's the adjustment. You need to have somebody right there with you when you're making adjustments. Well, this is the way it is. Da, da, da. Well, you need to have somebody there that says, no, that's not the way it is.
So actually, I'm
When
going to
it's
ask John Isaacs, who will be supervising the ombudsperson, to come on up and give a little more specifics.
We're going to do
to
that out
you.
of the communications thing.
Come on.
right? There we
Yeah,
go.
come on up.
All right, John.
Community involvement and public affairs. Yeah.
Thank you, Superintendent Smith. And I'll just say that I called it the ombudsperson for a while until I read the official National Society of Ombudsmen websites, where I was informed we should call it an ombudsman. It has a very long history and why that term ombudsman. Anyway, I'm happy to inform you that we've offered the ombudsman position. It's been accepted, and we'll be hiring a really great person for this position here in the next couple of weeks. I think, Director Buell, what I'd like to do is send you the job posting, because when we drafted the job posting, many of the concerns you are raising were written into the job posting so that it was there from the very beginning. We wrote the job description with based on feedback we got from the last ombudsman, and also with input from both the Coalition of Communities of Color and Our Portland, Our Schools. We included parents on the interview committee, so that's a unique thing. We don't do that very often, but we did in the hiring process. And there's language in the job posting that describes, it's a very detailed job posting, and there's language that I can't tell you off the top of my head, and I don't have the posting with me, but I'll send it to you, that does empower the ombudsman to manage complaints, parent concerns and complaints, through to completion, to resolution, and when necessary, inform members of the PPS, an employee of PPS, if they must do something in order to comply with PPS policies. So we wanted to write from the beginning that the ombudsman is empowered when it's appropriate, depending on the situation and the complaint, to inform and at times even direct another PPS employee, whether it would be an administrator or a principal or whatever, that they must do something in order for them to be in compliance with PPS policies if they are acting outside of those policies.
Who were the parents who were on the interview committee?
Our Portland, Our Schools representative was Scott Bailey. The Coalition of Communities of Color representative was Lakeitha Elliott.
Are there on the rewriting of the policy, do we have parents involved with the rewriting of the policy?
So the person who has accepted the position, we've already talked through the sort of priorities for what she will be working on when she starts, and she's aware that her first priority will be working with the team here on updating the parent complaint policy so that it's responsive to the state's findings, and that that should be a collaborative process to include parent input. Yes.
Could we also include some board member input on that
Absolutely.
as well.
We're required to do that because it'll be a
Thank you.
policy update, yes.
Yeah.
Which parent, are we including some of those parents who brought complaints on that committee? We have some of those parents who brought complaints, and they're the ones who brought the complaint. I would think we'd want to include those parents who brought the complaints to some degree into the rewriting of the complaint.
So as part of our audit process here, we're required to include the Parents Coalition. So that is the group of parents who filed the complaint with the state. So they're required to be a part of the audit process.
But they're not the ones that did the complaint process, right? The Parents Coalition did the other stuff?
No, it was a single.
Did they do
complaint.
they did that also?
Yes.
And some of those people are going to be included?
They're required from the order to be a part of it.
Thank you very much for answering.
I would
my
also say that
questions.
generally I agree that it's a best practice when you're reviewing a policy and going to change it to improve it, you would get the input of folks who have an experience with that process to get their experience when drafting a new policy, so.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yep.
Tom?
So Amanda, you mentioned the forecasting for full day. Do we have that information? Is it available? Because I know
It is,
folks-
unfortunately, that's not available yet.
What's the status of that?
We're expecting it in the next week or so.
And then it will become available then?
Yes.
Okay.
Others? Bobby?
I just wanted to do a shout out to the parents who were involved in the Parents Coalition and thank them for basically filing the complaint, because we were out of compliance, as we all know, in terms of our high school credit hours. And I think that this is, as a result of this ruling, it's not only going to help Portland Public School students, but it's going to help high school students across the state in terms of getting to minimum credit hours. And so we have much to be thankful to them for. And I think we also, I am grateful that we're looking at a relook at or rewrite at the parent complaint policy, because I think there have been concerns, and the fact that we're hiring an ombudsman is already a great step in the right direction. So I'm grateful to them for bringing this to our attention.
Others? Ruth?
I just want to thank staff for all their incredibly hard work in responding to this complaint and the other issues. This is a really great plan of action and response. Appreciate it very much. Do we have any updates from the state? I know just in terms of their follow-up with other districts, the many other districts that are out of compliance?
So my understanding is that a number of districts who are remaining on an 8-period day have filed for a waiver for the 2014-15 school year over the 130 course hour requirement. As you can see from ours, it's using an 8-period day. It's a real challenge. And as you know, what we did was really prioritize the benefits of that 8-period day. In terms of keeping it, and the great work that we did as part of contract negotiations and the additional instructional days allowed us to be able to have the 130 course hour requirement met.
Exactly. Thank you so much for all your hard work.
Matt?
So I have first of all, I'm really excited to hear that the ombudsman position has been hired. That was one of the things I was going to ask, and excited to have that start in July. Second, it's a technical question. It sounded as though for students who do not take eight credits, there needs to be a parent-signed waiver.
So our forecasting form this year allowed had it that when students did not forecast for 8 courses, their parents were acknowledging that they were not forecasting for 8 courses.
Okay. And what happens? I guess I don't know if you can answer this question, but what happens when the student doesn't take 8 credits, doesn't forecast for 8 credits, and there's no signature?
I don't know how that's been handled at a school-by-school basis, but my understanding is that it was a requirement as part of the forecasting sheet,
Okay.
either a parent or guardian.
Okay.
Other questions? Oh, great. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much
Thank
for
you.
your hard work. Okay. The next meeting of the board will be held on Monday, June 23rd, and this meeting is now adjourned.